Bullied, broken, and ignored, he was begged for a second chance at life, and got one. In another world, he made every effort, he rose as the Messiah, only to be hated, feared, and killed. Now he's reborn again. But who is he really? A savior, a ghost, or just a lost soul trapped between worlds? He's living a borrowed life, and he knows it. Will his lost soul be able to find itself? Let's find out. This story begins with Yamata Takeru, the protagonist, beginning to regain consciousness. Looking around, he spoke in confusion. What? Did he come back, or did he think so? The world he woke up in was his real world. The protagonist began to remember how it all began. At his school, bullies had their eye on him and constantly bullied him. He did not have the courage to stand up to them, and he hated himself for it. He hated people who turned a blind eye to what was happening. And he also hated his insignificant self as much as he hated his bullies. MC always dreamed of a chance to change his life. So when he was summoned to another world, he thought, here it is, his chance. How it happened, he himself could not really explain. One day, he opened his eyes and heard someone greeting him, addressing him as the Messiah. Looking around, he saw that he was in a luxurious hall, and there were some people standing around him. The voice that greeted him belonged to one of the girls, who was called Saint Edelweiss. He told her that she was mistaken. His name was Takeru. And so he found himself in another world. After some time, the protagonist learned that in this world, there was an entity called the Demon Lord. He made people suffer. Frankly, someone like the protagonist who could not even respond to his offenders. He did not think that he would be able to risk his life to fight the Demon Lord, but still, he did it. Saint Edelweiss, who accompanied him, told him that this was a big step forward. The protagonist, looking at the small magical flame above his hand, thought, even so, he wanted to try to accept himself in this other world. This time, he will not give up, and Takeru did not give up. He did his best, and the result was his execution. Instead of gratitude for defeating the Demon Lord, he was sentenced to execution. The Prime Minister announced to everyone present, from now on, in the name of God, they would be executing the monster Yamato Takeru. The protagonist sat in the middle of the platform, shackled, and listened as he continued his speech. He said that this otherworlder had the power to defeat the Demon Lord himself. Before he betrayed the human race and destroyed their world, they had to deal with him. The protagonist, looking at his shackled hands, thought, they used magic sealing shackles. Not to mention any gratitude, he was treated like an animal. The Prime Minister turned to the protagonist. Did he, the former Messiah, have anything to say? The crowd began to riot. The people were shouting for them to hurry up and kill him already. He was too dangerous for them. Let them cut off his head quickly. Let them kill him. Takeru, closing his eyes, answered the official that he was already tired of all this. He said goodbye to him. At that moment, the protagonist heard someone screaming. Saint Edelweiss was trying to get through to him, but the guards were not letting her in. She screamed, and tears were running down her cheeks. The protagonist was surprised and touched by this. Be it Japan or this world, he was never able to achieve acceptance. But at least one person was shedding tears for him. Now he was sure that his life should be happy. This was his last thought. The executioner carried out the Prime Minister's order. And now, here he was, in this incomprehensible room. Is this not the world where he was executed? Judging by the decor, this is a Japanese hospital? Does that mean he came back after all? But how is that possible? He died? It couldn't be. Were those 3 years really a dream? 2 birds landed on the window in his room and began to chirp happily. Takeru thought there was no point in racking his brains over something he couldn't understand. First, he needed to find out what was happening to him here. He looked at his reflection in the window and didn't recognize himself. A guy was looking at him, bandaged, with bruises, with plasters on his face. Takeru was amazed. Who was that? Was that really him now? The medical staff passing by at that moment heard a loud sound and a scream from his room. The protagonist was sitting on the floor. He tried to get up, but immediately fell. His whole body crunched. He was horrified. Several of his bones were broken. MC used general healing magic and noticed that his pain was gone. Takeru stood up and thought, the fact that he could still use magic means that all of that wasn't a dream. What if he was sleeping right now? He went to the mirror and began to examine himself again. He still did not recognize himself. At that moment, the door to the ward opened, and a woman shouting his name rushed to him. The doctor followed her. The woman rushed to him, hugged him, and joyfully exclaimed that he had woken up. The doctor, not believing his eyes, said in surprise, "How is this possible? He has a lot of broken bones. How can he even move?" The main character, looking at the woman, thought, is this the mother of the one who used to own this body? And the man must be the doctor, right? He could not directly say about the hooligans, so he decided to refer to memory loss. The main character pretended that he could not recognize his mother. He said, so he was playing with friends on the roof of the school? And then, the fence broke, he slipped and fell? The doctor began to examine him. He asked the protagonist, does he remember that his name is Kusanagi Takeru? The protagonist hesitated with an answer. Then he confirmed that he remembers, that is his name. The doctor was still in amazement. He could not believe it. All his serious injuries just disappeared. This is completely impossible to do even for an experienced doctor. Does he know about this? How is this possible? The doctor continued his examination. The protagonist thought, even though this is not another world, are there doctors here? At that moment, a man flew into the room and addressed MC by name. The woman addressed him affectionately and intimately, from which the protagonist concluded that this is Takeru's father. The father hugged him and cried, and then the mother joined them. The protagonist did not know how to behave with them. The man said, even if he does not remember them, he is so happy that his son is alive. The protagonist thought about whose body he had taken over, that he was surrounded by the love of his family. MC didn't know what was going on here, but he decided to find a way to return the body to whoever it belonged to. Let him wait a little longer. At the end of the examination, medical workers performed tests, and the results showed that he was healthy. So he was quickly discharged. Sitting in his parents' car, the protagonist thought that the technology in the hospital looked a little more futuristic than what he had seen before. But since everyone was speaking Japanese, this must be Japan. Still, the city had scenery that he was not used to seeing. When he was in Japan as Yamato Takeru, it was the year 2000. Was he thrown into the future? At that moment, the announcer on the TV said that it was time for the news program. Takeru stared at the screen. The announcer said that today was the last day of May. The hot spring of 2040 was about to end. The protagonist was surprised to hear what year it was. Meanwhile, the host continued that today, as always, they also saved many lives. Hunters risk their lives every day to save them. Takeru saw many different monsters on the screen. He was surprised to recognize them as ogres and goblins. Why do they attack in this world and not in another? And what kind of hunters are they? After thinking about it, he said, hunters do incredible things. He wanted to be one of them. The mother was surprised to note that her dear son was too clumsy. He would be torn apart in the blink of an eye. The father laughed and muttered that she was right. The protagonist looked at the screen, watching the hunters fight a huge number of monsters. He thought they fight using magic, as if it were normal. Even though this is Japan, it is very similar to that world. At that moment, something strange appeared from the side in the form of a crack with dark smoke. The father abruptly braked the car. They drove into the curb. Jumping out of the car, the protagonist and his mother stepped back, and the father, looking at the crack in the air, shouted that this is bad. He activated the Guardian Protector and slowed down the approach of trouble. The man looked at his hand, which he used to activate, and thought in surprise, no pain? The protagonist asked his father and mother, are they both okay? They answered him that everything is fine with them. He was satisfied with their answer. He looked at the crack and thought that he saw something similar in another world. The father shouted that everything is bad. This is a spatial gap. If they do not escape from here, they will end. Takeru noted that it was similar to a summoning spell. Suddenly, someone's paws with huge claws appeared in the gap, and terrible creatures broke through the crack. The protagonist was surprised. Ogres? He knew that an ogre was a monster that even a few well-trained knights serving the crown might not be enough to defeat. An ordinary person wouldn't stand a chance against it. The protagonist thought, if it was him, he could deal with them quickly. He could use magic too. Panic broke out among the people. Everyone started running in all directions, pushing each other and screaming in fear. The protagonist remembered his execution, from which he learned a lesson. The one who stands out the most dies first. Not to mention that this body belongs to Kusanagi Takeru, not him. So, if he stands out and ends up having to return this body, its main owner may have more trouble because of this. His father shouted at him to run to them faster. They need to get out of here. The protagonist did not want to be afraid anymore. He decided that he would run away. He turned to run to his parents, but at that moment, an ogre approached them and stretched out its paw towards them, intending to grab them. The protagonist could not allow this. He activated acceleration, afraid of being late to help. Approaching the monster, he activated explosive flash and struck the enemy. When he was finished, the protagonist asked his parents if they were okay. The amazed father answered that they were fine. Takeru explained to them that a passing hunter had dealt with the monster. They needed to get away from here as quickly as possible. As he left, MC looked at the defeated monster and thought that he had used his power after all. He looked at his parents, who had barely recovered from their fear, and noted that he was glad that he had been able to save the couple. But the problem was that after his attack, there was someone else's. Could it be that someone was helping him? He looked at the roof of one of the houses and saw a girl, Sakura, and it was she, looked at him with an attentive gaze. The protagonist irritatedly noted that this could have caused him a lot of trouble. Returning home, the father sadly summarized that their car was smashed to pieces. It was good that they themselves had survived. To get into such trouble and not have any casualties, they were truly lucky. The protagonist chuckled at his father's words. Finally, the mother turned to her son and told him that they had arrived. This was his home. She hugged him and told him, "Welcome home." The protagonist looked at the unfamiliar house. After a while, he and his mother looked at the photos on their phone. He thought that there were things that never changed. Then he entered the room where the owner of his current body lived. Takeru thought that if he wanted to spend time like the real owner of his body, he needed more information. He had done this once before, but he couldn't find the diary. Frankly, if he found something interesting here, it would be more fun. But instead, there was a book on sports on the table. It had a lot of bookmarks. Flipping through it, the protagonist thought it seemed like the owner of the body was a big fan of hunters. All the books in his library were about this. After looking at the contents of the book on the table, the protagonist realized that they even had a ranking table, special reports, like they were stars or something. If he were a hunter, he would want to join this guild. Takeru, is that so? After sitting down at the table, MC realized that he had a strange feeling, like he was in Japan, and yet he was not. He spent 3 years in another world, so he was a little used to strange things. He picked up the phone and noticed that this strange little box called a mobile phone was amazing. It was difficult to operate, but he should definitely learn how to do it. Besides, if he used it too often, he would probably get a huge bill. At that moment, a notification came to the phone. The phone made a sound that scared the protagonist very much. He was even more nervous than during the battle with the Demon Lord, when he remembered that this thing was spending the money of the body's owner's parents. He read on the screen that the system was asking for facial recognition. Bringing the phone closer to his face, the protagonist was surprised that the box's interface became available to him. Opening what came to the phone, he realized that it was some kind of mail. The protagonist opened a message from an unknown to him Orochi. The guy asked the owner of the box if he did something so crazy as trying to end his life. Thanks to his efforts, the police came to his house. He will never forgive him for this. The protagonist was surprised by what was written and the threat of non-forgiveness. He remembered his life and his offenders. A new message came. Orochi wrote that as soon as Takeru returns to school, let him be sure that Orochi will make sure that his time there becomes even more exciting. He hopes that Takeru is looking forward to it with the same impatience as he is. It became clear to the protagonist, so this is the friend with whom the owner of the body played. Then Orochi sent a picture of a fighter by message and signed it so that Takeru gets ready. The protagonist thought, this Orochi must be spending a lot of money to send him a bunch of short messages. He shouted at the screen in irritation, telling the body owner's friend not to send him some pictures. Let him think about the cost of such a message. Is this how he's stalking him? His shout caused his mother to peek into the room. She asked the protagonist in surprise, is he okay? If anything, they have Wi-Fi. The MC was surprised. What did she say? The mother apologized to him for not knocking on the door before entering. She just wanted to tell him that it must be really hard for him to cope with everything because of his memory loss, right? He might not go to school for a while. After she left, the protagonist thought about it. Since he was in the same situation as Orochi, he needed to use all his free time to study various things using his smartphone. 30 years ago, after he was summoned to another world, a gate connected this land and the other world, and monsters began to appear from them. They began to kill people. Modern weapons did not work on these mysterious entities, but out of nowhere, magicians appeared and began to fight the monsters. Magicians began to share knowledge of their skills, which anyone could master. Magic became the most important discipline, and people began to defeat monsters. Those who studied magic became known as magicians, and those who fought monsters were called hunters. Their task became to deal with the gaps between worlds and protect the daily lives of their compatriots. The protagonist looked at his mother and told her that he wanted to go for a walk. She told him to be more careful. Walking down the street and looking at the screen of his smartphone, the protagonist heard an old man advise him not to type while he was walking. The protagonist looked at him and put the phone away. Looking around, he walked down the street. A seller held a case of drinks in midair with a magical pass, which was about to fall. A girl in a cafe looked up at a glass of juice and spilled it on the table, for which she received a reprimand from her mother. The protagonist noticed that society quickly adapted to magic, to something so otherworldly that it still felt unreal. This world was very different from the one he knew. It had been 40 years, so people had adapted. It wasn't that he wanted to go back to his time, but he felt much more alone than he should have. At that moment, someone's scream caught his attention. Some woman was hysterically screaming that a thief had stolen her bag. The thief laughed as he ran away. The woman was too slow. People began to gather around her. The protagonist, looking at the thief, noticed that this guy used magic to escape. He was faster than a motorcyclist. Running away, the thief shouted for everyone to get out of his way. The protagonist decided to help the unfortunate woman. He activated physical enhancement, and in the blink of an eye was next to the criminal. Grabbing him by the shoulder, he told him that if he decided to steal, then he needed to be even faster. The guy looked at him in surprise. What was he saying? Taking the bag from the thief, MC returned it to its owner. The woman, next to whom stood a child and an elderly man with a stroller, told him that he just saved them. What can they do for him? Thank him very much for this. The protagonist asked her not to worry. He thought that initially, he just wanted to observe. The woman's daughter exclaimed, turning to him, that his magic is simply amazing. The woman admitted that she had never seen a person so fast under the influence of enhancement. The protagonist thought, so it was too fast? Next time he needed to be more careful. The old lady standing next to the woman asked for his hand. When the protagonist extended his hand, she placed some candies in his palm. Takeru looked at it in surprise, then at the old lady. She said that they would like to thank him properly, but since he refuses, he should at least take some candies. A story surfaced in the protagonist's memories. Once, when he was little, he massaged his grandmother's shoulders, and as thanks, she gave him his favorite candy. And now, his soul felt warm from the memory, and from these kind people whom he helped. He clutched the candies in his hand and thanked these people with a smile. Even if 40 years have passed and many things have changed, the main aspects have remained the same, and he was glad about it. Having said goodbye to these people, he went on. It was already completely dark, and he needed to hurry. At that moment, he heard a rustling behind him and deftly dodged to the side. Some guy flew past him who wanted to hit him. It was Orochi. He stood up, turned to the protagonist, and asked him if he was glad that he dodged thanks to pure chance. By the way, he would have been glad too if he hadn't ignored his messages. Does he understand this? The protagonist noted in surprise. Is he Orochi? The guy was furious. How did he call him? He should address him not just by his name, but with respect. The protagonist thought, so this hasn't changed either. The guy again shouted angrily that he shouldn't dare call him just by his name, without due respect. Trash like him should address him properly. Did he understand him? Then he noticed that his eyes were darting around. It was his fault that the police came to his house. He was hit below the belt. It hurt a lot. The protagonist, turning his face away from the guy's scream, thought, even after 40 years, characters like this still appear. Apparently, the owner of the body had the same problems. Previously, the protagonist was so afraid of guys like these that he simply froze in place from fear and could not respond in any way. But, frankly speaking, fighting dragons in another world is much scarier. If you compare those battles and the meeting with Orochi, then he somehow began to take it more calmly. The guy, noticing that the protagonist was thinking about something of his own, got even angrier. He was indignant. Let him stop hovering there in the clouds. Can he hear him? He is supported by real, dangerous people. Did he understand that? Even if he kills him now, his friends would hush it up. Orochi now reminded the protagonist of an evil Spitz, nothing more. He smiled and thought, it seems like he has matured after all. He was glad about it. Orochi got even more furious. Why was he smiling? The coward who tried to escape, choosing death, was now floating in the clouds? The protagonist again imagined the guy in the form of a Spitz. He thought, what should he do? Apparently, Orochi was going to hit him. He could easily send him flying, but still, he did not want to stand out. It would be enough for his opponent to fall a little. Meanwhile, Orochi was getting more and more heated. He shouted at the protagonist that allowing someone like him to be born was a big mistake, and his parents were a big mistake too. The MC could not stand this anymore. Waiting for Orochi to raise his fist to strike, the protagonist counter-punched him with such force that the boy, having turned over several times in the air, fell to the ground. The protagonist advised him not to speak ill of his parents. The boy cursed filthily at MC. Takeru told him that it was dangerous to resort to combat magic in such a place. Suddenly, a spatial rift formed right above Orochi. The protagonist exclaimed in surprise, a rift in reality? An ogre appeared from the crack. He struck Orochi. The boy was thrown aside and went limp. The protagonist quickly assessed the situation. He realized that the boy was not dead. He did not know if it was because he was a boxer, but the boy turned out to be quite strong. He looked around, noted that there were no strangers nearby. Orochi was passed out, but it did not look like he had much time either. The protagonist decided to end this in the blink of an eye. He activated his physical enhancement, appeared next to the monster in a flash, and dealt it a crushing blow, piercing its body with his fist. The monster, not expecting such an attack, fell to the ground dead. The monster's blood splashed Orochi. MC noted, looking at the dead monster and the bloody guy, that now it all looks like scenes from a horror movie. Oh well, it's just Orochi. The gap was what was important. It couldn't be left like that. Takeru thought, since it was very similar to a magical summoning from another world, then if he destroyed the magic circle, the gap should disappear. He tried what he had planned, and it worked. The rift disappeared, and police sirens were heard in the distance. The protagonist noted that this was bad. He quickly prayed for Orochi and ran away from that place. The police arrived at the scene, and then Sakura appeared. The girl couldn't believe that someone had killed the blood ogre with one blow. Her friend said, everything was already like that when they arrived at the scene. The blood ogre was already dead, and the gap was closed. They found one unconscious guy here. He was fine, got off with a few bruises. It seemed like he had fought with a classmate here. Sakura crouched in front of Araki and told the policeman. The guy said that he was the one who killed this monster. In fact, she didn't believe it. It didn't look like that. She didn't feel that this guy had enough strength to defeat the monster with one blow. Why was he so covered in blood? Suddenly, she remembered the protagonist when she saw him then, when he saved his parents. Then, she decided that this incident was misinterpreted by her. The girl told the policeman that she would return to the Hunters Association, let him send her a report after everything. The policeman told her that he understood her, he would do everything. Returning to the guild, Sakura wondered what could have happened there. She was so lost in thought that she didn't notice anyone or anything around her. Two men passing by recognized her. It was Takamine Sakura, right? Her face was so cute. In fact, she was so cute, you couldn't tell at first that she was the youngest hunter to rise to S rank. The girl continued to think. The blood ogre was a very dangerous monster. It might take several A-rank hunters to eliminate it. Someone had defeated the monster faster than her, who was sent by the Hunter Association, and closed the gap. A hunter stronger than her had appeared in this city? Meanwhile, the protagonist was drinking tea with his parents. After a while, the protagonist came to Kazami High School. Looking at it, he thought, so this is the school where the owner of his body studied? It looked much more familiar to him than it should be. He remembered how his parents were not happy with his idea. His father grabbed his shoulder and told him that he didn't have to go back to school if he didn't want to. Despite all their persuasion, he felt fine. The owner of his body wouldn't like it if he had to make up for a whole year of missed school. Walking across the playground with the other students, he thought that Takeru had been brought to the end of his life. It wasn't like he had any friends, right? The circumstances Takeru had faced and those of his past life were very similar. However, he had been given a second chance in another world. He had someone to practice magic with, to exchange fierce glances with his fellow adventurers, and to run away from or fight powerful demons. He remembered how he had hit Saint Edelweiss hard during one of his training sessions. She had gotten really angry at him then, and he had justified it to her by saying that it was a pure accident. Oh, how she had driven him then. After he apologized to her, she confessed to him that she wanted to create a world where everyone could laugh without pretense. The protagonist, standing in front of the school entrance, said to himself that it was time for him to go. He would be able to take his first step here thanks to her. His friend Edelweiss. When the protagonist entered the classroom, the teacher told his classmates that, from today on, Kusanagi Takeru would be returning to class. Because of what happened to him, he now has a slight memory loss. He, as a teacher and their mentor, asks them all to support him and help him if possible. The protagonist, in complete silence, under the surprised looks of his classmates, walked to his desk and sat down at it. The teacher noted that he was leaving them alone. Their teacher would soon come to them for the first lesson. Takeru looked around the classroom. All of the classmates of the owner of his body were bored. Suddenly, Araki entered the classroom and the whole class seemed to perk up. Everyone started asking him, is it true that he killed the bloody ogre? It was just super. How cool. As expected of a guy like Araki. He was enjoying such fame. The guy answered them with a satisfied smile. Who else could have done it if not the magnificent him? Suddenly, he saw the protagonist. Takeru smiled, remembering the incident yesterday, but then remembered that he supposedly had partial memory loss. He turned away, made a bored face, and decided to ignore this guy. Something happened, and Araki jumped up in his seat with a scream. His classmates asked him in confusion, what happened? The guy told them that nothing. He was fine. The protagonist was approached by a boy named Sawamuro Takuro, who was sitting next to him at a side desk. He told him that the teacher told him about his amnesia. How is he now? Is he okay? The protagonist was surprised. What? The owner of his body has such people here who communicate with him? Takuro spoke. Everything is clear to him. He doesn't even remember him. The guy smiled at him, told MC his name. He added that he also liked hunters. They often talked about them. He was glad to meet him again. The protagonist was happy. It meant that this Takeru did have friends after all. During the last lesson, MC buried his face in his desk. He thought he had no strength at all. Takuro anxiously asked him, is he okay? The protagonist noted that he had definitely become stronger physically and spiritually after visiting another world. But the same cannot be said about his intelligence. He was not very smart before. Even when he himself went to high school, he always slacked off on studying, not to mention the fact that his notebooks were made of paper, and here everything was computerized. So this is how they study in the future. The protagonist buried his face in his hands. Takuro anxiously thought, so this is what amnesia looks like. He will remember this. But even so, he does not look too depressed. Quite the opposite. The protagonist, understanding his classmates' thoughts, thought that this was actually a relief for him. He said out loud, addressing Takuro, that there was no need to worry about it. The guy asked him in surprise, What was he talking about? Takeru asked him what kind of person his friend was to him. The guy smiled and answered him without hesitation that he was the kindest person in this world. The protagonist noted in response that everything was clear to him. At that moment, one of the classmates, a bald guy, called out to the protagonist and said that he looked healthy, which he was very happy about. The second classmate, with a headband, noted with a grin they were so worried about him. The protagonist greeted them in bewilderment. Orochi appeared from behind the guys. The guy with the headband on his head sarcastically asked him what really happened to Orochi. Was he really that scared of the police? The guy blushed and told him that they were just joking, the last time they messed with him. Picking on him again would only get them into trouble. The bald guy confirmed that he was right. The guy with the headband supported his friends, saying that the police were annoying too. The protagonist tried to convince himself to ignore them. Takeru asked them. They wanted him to help them with their homework again, right? The bullies laughed and answered him sarcastically that they did. They were counting on him. Takeru smiled and expressed his willingness to help them. He asked them were they going to the library again? The bald guy laughed and remarked that he understood everything perfectly. Let him follow them. The protagonist called out to his friend. He waved his hand at the protagonist, smiled, and told him, "That's how it is. They will see him tomorrow." The bullies left with Takeru. MC thought in surprise, his ally was pulling these guys along? They were suddenly serious about their studies? He was tormented by doubts. It couldn't be that. He turned to two classmates. He asked them where they went. Their direction was not the library. Did they go to the roof? One of the guys told him that this was not so. The roof was now closed because of what happened to him. Reluctantly, they told him that the company went to the industrial area behind the school. The protagonist thanked them and rushed after his friend. Classmates were surprised. Had Takeru always been so confident, or was it because of his amnesia? Meanwhile, the protagonist came to where his friend was taken. A guy with a headband, imitating a teacher, read the problem. The greater the mass or acceleration of an object, the more damage it causes. It turns out that the force of an object is equal to the mass multiplied by the acceleration. What is the name of what we get as a result? He continued, answering Araki's question. The guy yelled back that he had no idea. He was busy beating up Takeru, who was being held by the bald guy. The guy with the headband said that this was the wrong answer. He started looking for the right answer. The bald guy told him that he knew what it was. It was Newton's second law. The guy with the headband snapped back. Was he the smartest or something? He also thought that this was the same law, didn't he? The protagonist, watching what was happening, thought it's good that he came. But what to do next? He didn't want to change Takeru's situation too abruptly, so it was probably better to avoid direct confrontation. At that moment, Orochi lifted Takeru's head up. The protagonist's ally was covered in blood. The bully told him that he was just an idiot. Couldn't he have yelled something like help for his friend or something? He understands that, because of playing with them, he tried to end his life, right? The protagonist, hearing this, thought, so he was not mistaken. Takeru came here himself. It does not matter what exactly he thinks about it. He did it to protect the owner of his body. And for him, Kusanagi Takeru is the highest priority. He wanted to save him, because if he came here, everything would be much worse. Meanwhile, the bullies continued to beat Takeru. They offered him options for asking for help, for his friend to save him, or, sorry, it's time for him to go home and watch anime. The bald one noted that this was disgusting. Takeru got up on all fours with difficulty and told them that he would not say that. The protagonist listened attentively to their dialogue and thought about what to do. Meanwhile, Takeru continued. He abandoned his ally, even though he was his friend. The bullies started to mock him, calling him a whiner in the end. The protagonist's ally said that even though Takeru was his friend, he would never ask him to help him, even if he was their next target. Even knowing that he would be fighting all of them instead of him, he took advantage of his kindness. It couldn't be him. This time, he wouldn't make such a mistake. It wasn't himself he was worried about so much. This time, he would save his friend. Orochi said with a lazy expression that everything was clear to him and dealt the guy another blow. The protagonist, who was touched by the fact that his ally called the owner of his body his friend in front of these bullies, barely contained himself. As Takeru flew back from another blow, Orochi noted that this is how he perceives their elective. And as expected, the nerds are completely different. In any case, they came here to have fun, not to study. Then he complained how angry he was at this Takeru. The bald man asked him sarcastically, was he so scared after everything he had seen? Orochi advised him to rudely shut his mouth. The protagonist felt uncomfortable. He felt a burning sensation in the area of his heart. He understood everything that the owner of his body would want. Well, his highest priority is him, Kusanagi Takeru. Coming out of his hiding place, the protagonist stood in front of the offenders. They stared at him in bewilderment. What was he up to? How did he end up here? MC calmly told them that he would play with them now. He mentally called on his body owner to save Takeru together. The bald man was surprised. Who came to them? The guy with the headband mockingly asked the protagonist, did he come to get his portion of beatings? He was already sick of him. The protagonist looked only at Orochi. Takeru tried to say something to his friend, but he passed out. The guy with the headband noted with feigned regret that he had passed out. The bald man continued. He was so skinny that he didn't even have the strength to be a punching bag. The protagonist sat down in front of his ally, scanned him, and told them that he was very strong. The bully with the headband exclaimed, what was he saying? Did he seriously just say that? The bald man supported his comrade. Did they beat him up so hard that he forgot it? He wanted to say something else, but he didn't have time, because at that moment he received a powerful blow to the face, from which he turned over in the air. Orochi and his henchman were amazed. What happened? The bald man somehow stood up, staggering, and angrily shouted at the protagonist not to look down on him. He rushed at the protagonist again. On the other side, a bully with a headband was about to attack him. Takeru waited for them to get closer to him, deftly dodged their blows, and forcefully slammed their heads together. Orochi screamed furiously that this remnant pissed him off. He ran at MC, but before he could even realize it, he found himself on his back, and the protagonist pressed his face with his hand. Takeru calmly told him that if he didn't correct his habit of constantly barking, he would be a nuisance to the people around him. Pressing his hand into his face, the protagonist added, even if he liked dogs. MC removed his hand from the bully's face. Orochi hoarsely said that he didn't care. His allies called out to him with alarm and told him that it was just Takeru. The bald man told the protagonist not to get cocky. The protagonist looked at them and thought, they still won't calm down? Oh well, it's even easier for him. Back when he was fighting the Demon Lord's army, one of his warriors begged Takeru for mercy. He told him that he was forced to do all this against his will by the Demon Lord. He would do whatever the protagonist told him. The protagonist believed him then and let him go. Because of this, the town was razed to the ground. Thanks to this, he learned his lesson. If you've already started doing something, you shouldn't give up halfway. He will make sure that these scumbags can never do something like this again. They will never touch his friend Takeru again. He will break their will. The protagonist stretched out his hand to activate his magic skill, when suddenly a blue rift appeared in front of them. The hooligans recognized this trick with horror. It was bad for them. An orc crawled out of the rift. The guys screamed in horror that the creature had already crawled out. The protagonist was surprised. Was it an ogre? Well, why an ogre again? Although it was clear to him, this is the most dangerous monster that can only appear from the blue rift. The bald man told his ally to calm down. After all, Orochi himself is with them. The guy with the headband noticed. That's right. After all, he laid out the bloody ogre yesterday. They turned to their leader to destroy the monster. Orochi rolled his eyes in bewilderment, not understanding what to do. Then he exclaimed that the ogre is just trash to him. He activated a fireball against the enemy, but it didn't even reach the monster. He dodged it, and the ball went out, falling next to him. The surprised hooligans wondered, what is this? The orc got angry and hit the guy. Orochi was carried away. His partners were horrified. The bald one called on his ally with the headband to run away from here. This was all bad. Running away from the place, they did not even think about their leader. The ogre turned to the protagonist with an ominous grin. The protagonist activated his powerful fireball and directed it at the monster. The enemy was defeated. Takeru looked at Orochi. The guy looked at MC in horror and then said that he was a monster. The protagonist approached him, but the guy protested. He asked him not to approach him. The protagonist, not listening to him, crouched in front of him and stretched out his hand over him, activating the healing skill. After which, Orochi was surprised to notice that all his wounds had disappeared. MC called him by name and tapped his finger on the ground in front of his face. The sound made the ground shake and begin to fall apart. Takeru asked his offender to listen to what he had to say. He didn't want to stand out and he wanted to coexist peacefully. So, they would just tell everyone that it was he, Orochi, who defeated the monster again. Let everything remain as it was. The guy exclaimed in surprise. What was he saying? The protagonist answered him that there were no witnesses here, so everything was fine. It was he who defeated the bloody ogre yesterday, right? Orochi, with difficulty, but still wanted to admit that it wasn't him. The protagonist didn't let him do it. He pointed his finger at him and calmly said, from now on, he shouldn't come near him or Takeru, and most importantly, he should stop bullying those around him. The protagonist added that this also applies to his two friends. Let him calm them down. If he ever finds out that they are up to their old tricks again, he will not spare them. MC tapped his finger on Orochi's forehead and asked him if they understood each other. The guy silently dropped his head into his hands, apparently in agreement. He now reminded the protagonist of a meek Spitz. Takeru noted, okay, so be it. Suddenly he heard voices behind him. Someone was telling the hunter that it was here. They need to hurry. The ogre is here. The protagonist picked up his beaten friend. He told Orochi that they had to go, and he should try to distract the people who came, and he himself left this place together with Takeru. The bully was left lying on the broken ground. Meanwhile, at the Hunter Training School, which was created with the support of the Hunter Association, at the Ouran Academy, one of the girls reported to Sakura that she was sent to deal with the ogre at Kazami High School. But before she arrived, the monster had already been dealt with. Sakura, without taking her eyes off the monitor, said that everything was clear to her. The girl looked at her in surprise, asked her for forgiveness, and added that the lone student they found at the scene of the battle told them that he was the one who defeated the ogre. But the remaining mana at the scene of the battle, it was beyond the power of an ordinary person. Such monstrous power clearly did not belong to this guy. Sakura looked at the girl. She looked so scared, although she had enough power for a hunter. Was she scared because of some remaining mana? She looked at the monitor where there was a photo of Araki and thought, this student from yesterday again. Sakura thanked the girl for the information. She told her that she would take care of the matter herself. She would study it in more detail. The girl asked her to definitely take care of the matter herself. In that case, she apologizes to her again. The girl left the huntress, and already in the corridor, she gave vent to her emotions. She shouted that Sakura was very cool. She was so wonderful. Some teacher made a remark to her not to shout in the corridor. The girl obediently retreated. Sakura sat down on a chair with her legs up, buried her face in her knees, and thought how difficult it was for her with this type of people. She just wanted to fight monsters. She didn't like what she was doing now. And, most importantly, her appearance had nothing to do with what she was doing. The girl mentally asked everyone to leave her alone. Then Sakura gathered her thoughts and began to analyze. The one who dealt with the monster that appeared today. All things considered, it was someone else. Definitely not Araki. And then there was the bloody ogre incident that happened the other day. Today, according to the reports, Araki was arguing with someone there. And it seemed like that someone had intentionally disappeared before they showed up. She was sure she would get closer to the truth if she talked to Araki. This was all for her family, after all. The girl came to the school where the bully studied. The possibility of an unaccounted for force could not be discounted. At that moment, the bald guy and the guy with the headband were making fun of Araki in class. The main bully was sitting at his desk with a neat hairdo, diligently scribbling something in an electronic notebook. There was a bandage on his forehead. His allies laughed at him like crazy, exclaiming, "Well, that's so funny, what kind of shapeshifting is this? It's so unlike him." The rest of his classmates were also puzzled by the bully's behavior and appearance. Takeru, who entered the classroom, also stared at his offender in surprise. Araki's allies, seeing him, began to clown around. "It's Mr. Four Eyes, what is he staring at?" At that moment, Araki pushed them hard to shut them up. The protagonist's friend looked at all this in confusion. At that moment, the protagonist entered and greeted his friend. Takeru reciprocated. MC asked him about his wounds. "What are they?" The guy answered him, to tell the truth, he fell so hard yesterday that he got all these wounds. The protagonist thought that he wanted to heal them yesterday, but did not have time, for which he mentally apologized to his ally. He remembered the doctor when he first woke up in this world. The doctor was surprised that all his bones were intact. He exclaimed in surprise that it was impossible to cure, even with the most powerful healers. Meanwhile, Takeru asked him, "Did he go home straight away yesterday?" The protagonist lied to him, saying that he did. Yesterday, his mother cooked a lot of his favorite dish to celebrate his return to school. He then thought that his stomach would burst from the amount he ate. The protagonist mentally noted that it seemed like it was too much. Takeru laughed. He noticed that it must have been really hard for him. The guy quietly asked the protagonist, "What happened to Araki?" The changes in him scared him a little. The protagonist answered him, "Isn't it all for the best?" He became a diligent student. He suggested his friend to leave him alone. At this time, Sakura entered the school. She looked around and thought, "So this is the same school." The girl heard a student apologize to the teacher for burning his hair. The teacher answered him peacefully that he practices magic. Such things happen sometimes. The happy student flattered the teacher that it suited him much better. The teacher asked him, "Is it true?" The girl laughed, imagining the picture of their conversation. She thought that in their days, all hunters were taken care of by the Hunter Association. A person with great power and left to his own devices should be kept in mind. Who knows what he will do with his power? Even hunters who are subordinates are always under their control. Before Sakura could think of another reason why she should find this unaccounted for, because at that moment, the S-rank hunter Orochi Hebikawa Jin, whom everyone called Orochi, called out to her. He asked her in surprise, what was a Valkyrie doing in such a place? The girl reluctantly greeted him. He asked her, why was she here? Everything is fine, isn't it? Sakura sternly said that it wasn't quite. She added, the Ouroboros Guild is responsible for the Tokai region. Is it normal for the guild leader to be here? The guy sarcastically told her that she had nothing to worry about. They had a lot of great people on staff. There was a mutual dislike between them. Sakura knew that the Ouroboros Guild was famous for its aggressive method of recruiting newcomers, so the reason this person was here was the same as hers, searching for the unaccounted for. She said it seems like his guild has been hanging around lately, trying to gain even more power. Jin asked her where she got that from. She was still so young, but she already had her own sources of information. Sakura asked him, even they were afraid of the gods of war, weren't they? The young man answered her sarcastically that he didn't care at all about righteous idiots who couldn't see beyond their own noses. And they, it seemed, were inciting conflicts between guilds. The girl answered him irritably. They, hunters, shouldn't care about internecine strife, they should protect people with their strength. Jin retorted with a smirk. In order to protect, they need to gather a strong coalition, with a much stronger leader than the Hunters Association has. Sakura got angry. He spoke as if he was the chosen one. She couldn't stand it. Jin also angrily noted that she was acting like a huntress with a crystal-clear heart. The shock of hatred for each other seemed to pierce through them. Then Jin said that more importantly, since she was already here, this guy was definitely here too. She asked him, so he was looking for him too? What were they planning this time? The young man grinned and mimicked her. What were they planning? Sakura began to suspect his intentions, but she was outraged. Let him not tell her that he wanted to cause trouble here to lure out this hero. Let him stop what he was planning immediately. Jin angrily told her not to tell him what he should do. Suddenly, the space lit up, and a rift appeared in the air. The opponents cautiously took a fighting stance. Panic arose in the school. The teachers calmed the students. They told them that a rift was opening. Everyone needed to remain calm and evacuate the school according to the plan. Sakura called Jin to attack. He turned around and told her that he was coming back. The girl was surprised. What was he doing? He noted that it was a blue rift. Since she was here, everything would be fine. He had no business dealing with such trivial matters. The girl got angry. Wasn't he a hunter? The guy noted, to be precise, he was the best S-rank hunter in Japan. The girl grinned and rushed towards the rift. Jin thought the magical power that he felt for only a moment when the rift opened was much greater than he thought, as well as the ability to erase all traces in order to merge with the ordinary measured flow of life. He realized that they were dealing with a monster, right? The young man grabbed his head and muttered that now he needed to prepare a lot of things. Meanwhile, ghouls crawled out of the rift and began to attack the students. Absolute chaos arose. Sakura fearlessly rushed into battle, activating all her skills, but there were more of them than she thought. Among the running students, one girl fell. She screamed at her classmates not to leave her. A monster was approaching her from behind. Sakura used the skill Lightning and literally snatched the girl from the clutches of the ghoul. The students looked at her in surprise. She told them that she was an S-rank hunter. Sakura, she would take care of the monsters, and they needed to hurry up and evacuate everyone. The students and teachers understood her. They began to leave the institution. The girl thought, these skeletons and ghouls are low-ranking monsters, so the students should be fine. She could help them. Willow, the wisps use magic to warn of danger, but there are not many of them here. If they were quiet, she was sure they could handle it themselves. Sakura heard someone say that mana was coming from the floor above. They were on the roof. She thought again. This was an unusual situation for them. They had not received proper instructions, or even more so, training, so the students cannot be blamed for the fact that they succumbed to panic and could not move now. But that is why hunters exist. At that moment, someone activated the sacred circle, and Sakura saw one student who created this magical attribute. She found him, unaccounted for. The protagonist was sitting with his back to her and was busy trying to close the rift. The protagonist stood up. Without turning around, he used physical enhancement and rushed forward from her. Surprised by his agility, Sakura shouted at him that he could not hide from her. She activated lightning and went in pursuit of him. The girl noted that he was very fast. Is it true that he only used physical enhancement? Her lightning speed should have given her more speed than his spell. The protagonist meanwhile thought, so she can keep up with him? He didn't want to turn around and show her his face, but he felt her pressure. The protagonist could be faster if he wanted, but physical enhancement is magic that enhances the physical abilities of the one who uses it, and that would be beyond the powers of the owner of his body. If it was his real body, which had undergone a lot of training, everything would be different. In any case, there was no point in thinking about it now. Magic comes from a person's soul, not the body, so he still had all his strength left, but he couldn't let his guard down. Therefore, he mentally asked the owner of the body for forgiveness, but he would have to pump up his body a little. He needed to make sure that this body did not become like a bodybuilder's. After pumping up his body, the protagonist used air enhancement and simply disappeared from Sakura's sight. She exclaimed in amazement, "What is this? Was it a rocket or something?" Stopping on the roof of the building, the girl looked around, but she did not see the protagonist anywhere. She thought with annoyance that this time she would have to let him go. And what could she do? Meanwhile, MC, having broken away from the pursuit, calmly walked down the street. He thought that he left his backpack at school, but he would pick it up tomorrow. He was already quite far from school. He was sure that classes were over for today. The girl who was pursuing him, most likely, she was a hunter. When he searched for information on the internet, he thought that they were like a knightly order or a guild of adventurers from another world. But there are quite strong personalities there, at least a couple for sure. In general, he could not let his guard down. Entering home, the protagonist told his mother that he was home. The mother rushed to hug him, saying that she was very glad that he was okay. He hugged her and asked her for forgiveness for making her worry. The mother spoke. She saw that their school was attacked by ogres, and he did not answer the phone. The protagonist once again apologized to her for this. Then he was surprised. Where is his phone? The mother told him that she completely forgot to tell him. His friend came and brought his phone. He is in the living room now. Let him thank his friend. The protagonist, entering the living room, thanked his friend Takeru, but he suddenly stood rooted to the spot. Sakura was sitting at the table, calmly drinking tea. Putting the mug on the table, she smiled and greeted him. He stared at her in surprise. The mother looked at them in bewilderment, peeking out from behind the door. The protagonist said her name in surprise. He clarified, "Is she an S-rank hunter?" The girl answered him that she was. Sakura thanked him for what he did earlier. MC now understood who was chasing him. He also thanked her for going out of her way to return his phone. She pointed out that it wasn't quite like that. She wanted to ask him about something. The protagonist smiled. Did she have any questions for him? Sakura also smiled and answered him that it was true. She wanted to ask him about the incident at the abandoned factory yesterday, and also about the incident with the bloody ogre that happened recently. The protagonist was smiling widely, but in his mind he understood that everything was very bad for him. Everything was much worse than he thought. He couldn't run away anymore, and they couldn't discuss everything openly here. Takeru's mother seemed to have misunderstood everything as well, so wherever he looked, everything was very bad. The protagonist invited Sakura to chat. Since she had already gone out of her way to come here, he wanted to thank her properly. He invited her to go to his room and discuss everything there. The girl thought for a moment, then she agreed to his proposal. Takeru's mother enthusiastically asked him if she should go to the store and buy a cake there. The protagonist asked her to ignore them. He would make black tea for them instead of cake. After bringing Sakura to his room, MC offered her to sit on a chair. The girl answered him from her place that she was fine here. The protagonist himself sat on the chair and wilted. The huntress said, "So, who is he?" He noticed that she was not beating around the bush. Even if he told her who he was, it would hardly embarrass her. The girl continued, depending on what she heard, she might have to use force. He thought that she was being rather rude. If he lied, she would guess about it. And if he told her that he was a hero from another world, she would write it off as a joke. What should he tell her? Sakura pinned him to the table and noted that the fact that he was quiet now meant that there was something he didn't want to talk about, didn't it? He held out his hand, pushing her away from himself. She reminded him of an angry pig. The protagonist told her that he had done nothing wrong, and anyway, he had amnesia. If she asked his parents, they would confirm it to her. And they notified the school too. The girl asked him irritably, even in that case he was fighting demons? Even if he had a good sense for using magic, how did he stay calm in such a commotion? Takeru imagined her poking his hand with her snout in the form of a pig, and thought, well. Out loud he answered her he didn't know why. It just worked out for him, that's all. Sakura looked at him incredulously. He thought, as expected, it seems he went a bit overboard. The girl asked him again, why is he hiding his powers? MC noted in response, even if he suddenly mastered such powers, it does not mean that he wants to use them, they scare him. Sakura said he could perform hunter tasks at the highest level. The protagonist told her that he does not want to make his parents worry. He has no desire to become a hunter. She looked at him closely and asked him, status in society, fame, glory, even if he could have everything he wants. The protagonist calmly answered her that he does not need all of that. If he can live in peace and quiet, then he will prefer it. Sakura was surprised by his answer and thought for a while. Then she said that she understood him. As long as he does not use his powers to do bad things, neither she nor the Hunter Association will have any complaints about him. She will make everyone think that she is the one who figured out everything at his school. The protagonist was surprised. Did she believe him? The girl told him that she was not going to take everything at face value so quickly. But when she thinks about what he did, she is inclined to believe him. All he did before was protect others. The protagonist was surprised that everything ended so peacefully between them. He walked the girl to the exit. She bowed to him and apologized to him for starting to stalk him out of the blue, and also for the fact that she behaved inappropriately at his home. The protagonist objected. She has nothing to apologize for. He is the one who should do it for acting so suspiciously. Sakura noted that if she could give him one piece of advice, then setting a password of 4 zeros on his smartphone was not the best idea. Even she managed to hack it. She unlocked his phone and saw his name there. Then she asked people at school about him and came to his address. The protagonist thought gloomily, so that's how she found him. He asked her why she was in such a status. Sakura answered him she became a hunter so that others could live in peace and quiet. She added that he wouldn't be able to hide his powers forever, but in any case, if he wanted to live a peaceful life, then she would protect his ordinary everyday life. Turning around, the girl left. The protagonist, looking after her, thought, so in this world they also exist, people who are so similar to Edelweiss. Meanwhile, Sakura was pleased with herself. Just to be on the safe side, she saved the protagonist's phone number. He was having a hard time coping with all this because of his amnesia. She should remember that. She remembered how he, looking at his phone, asked her, "Where is the infrared sensor on it?" She joked with him. "Is he going to set a trap or something?" The girl smiled, looking at the phone. She thought that Takeru was a mysterious person. At that moment, an old man passing by told her not to text while walking. It was the same old man who, at one time, made a similar remark to the main character. Sakura was surprised by his advice. At that time, one of the villagers, looking at the banner, noted that this was a group of S-rank hunters, Guardians of the Wind. They helped him once, and turned out to be very nice people. They said that they would protect their area. Thanks to them, he got the feeling that they have local heroes. It's so cool. Matsuri is also very cute. Another exclaimed that the other girl is much cuter. An argument began between them, in which they began to shout out the names of girls. MC, running nearby, thought that running always calms him down so much. The school was closed for a while because of that incident. In another world, this was part of his daily schedule. Well, it wasn't like he could shirk running because the general who taught him how to wield a blade was always nearby. It was hard at first, but it really helped him get his body in order. It was the perfect solution for a recluse like him. Suddenly, he saw a crowd of people and, looking further, he thought that this was a black rift. It takes some time for a black rift to open and powerful monsters to appear from it. It is still possible to close the rift before damage is done to this world by defeating the leader of the monsters in this rift. Are these guys waiting for the guards to return? There is another world inside this rift. Could the world he has already visited be there? If he enters it now, maybe he will be able to figure out what is happening. Suddenly, Gadamomoru, the leader of the Wind Guardians team, grabbed his shoulder and shouted at him to drive away his fears. Because they, the Wind Guardians, are already here. He has nothing to worry about, Chika said with a smile. Let him forgive him. He is always so noisy. Tomita Yuichi agreed with a calm face and added that it was disgusting. Let him calm down. Amamiya Matsuri replied with a smile that this was one of his good qualities. Gado happily exclaimed that he did not care that he was an idiot. MC looked at the banner in confusion and thought that it was them, right? The people, seeing the Wind Guardians, happily exclaimed that they were counting on them today. The protagonist thought in surprise that they were so alive. They definitely left behind a feeling of local heroes. Gado called out to him and shouted that they would destroy the rift and everything would be fine. With this shield, he would protect his friends, this city, and him. The protagonist thought that he understood everything. That meant he was a tank. He replied with a smile, let him try his best. Yuichi kicked him into the portal and said that it was time for them to go. Chika excitedly noted that he completely deafened that guy with his screams. MC, saying goodbye to them, thought that this commotion brings back memories, just like his general. He remembered how in one of the anti-demon strongholds on the front lines, Kanan, the general of the Royal Army Grotto, fighting with the main character, exclaimed with a smile, "What's wrong? His movements are getting slower." He nervously thought that he can't hit him at all. The general dodged in an instant and, pointing his sword at him, noticed that it was open from above. Grotto kicked his legs and, putting his sword to his neck, said that victory is his. But this is as expected of him. He was chosen by the gods for a reason. His physical and magical abilities are growing at an impressive rate every day. MC excitedly asked, if that's so, then why can't he even hit him? The captain replied with a smile that no matter how fast he was, a strong attack would always leave a gap in his defense. It was all a matter of how he would use that gap. In other words, if he created such a gap for himself. Suddenly, a monster climbed over the wall. Grotto, without finishing his sentence, immediately got into a fighting stance. The protagonist excitedly shouted that he had never seen anything like this before. How did he get in? Where were the guards even looking? The demon pounced on him in lightning speed and seriously injured him. The captain tried to counterattack, but he didn't have time. MC got into a fighting stance in fear and wondered what to do. He was so scared that he couldn't even move a finger. Grotto shouted that he would keep him busy for a while, so let him run. As a general appointed by the king to fight this war, he would not give up so easily. MC tried to cry out in hysterics, but the general noted with a smile that it had only been 3 months since he appeared in their world. It was as if he had acquired a grandson, because every day with him was fun. He had already lost his wife and son, he could not bear to lose his grandson. Now let him hurry. The protagonist thought that he wanted to run away, but he simply could not use the general as bait and run away. He did not want to do this. Didn't he decide to forget what he was like before? He purposefully rushed to attack and screamed. Grotto excitedly shouted that this was bad. Such a wide swing would not work. The protagonist thought that if he created a gap for himself, he would understand where he would hit, and he would make his move. With lightning speed, he chose the perfect moment and cut the demon. The captain, in wild shock, asked why he did this. MC, with a calm face, answered that he would also be sad if he lost his grandfather. Besides, he did everything just as he was taught. Grotto stood up happily and shouted that it was a great performance. No, it was a perfect performance. He gives him 500 billion points. The protagonist excitedly replied that he shouldn't move because he was covered in blood. Currently, the protagonist was stretching and thinking that Grotto and the general were very similar. It had been 3 hours and his hearing hadn't fully returned. As for the strength training, he would start small, even if it was 5 minutes a day, and he would change the part where he spent days on end. He should focus on cardio and increasing his stamina. He also shouldn't forget about stretching. As for the diet, Takeru doesn't have much trouble losing weight, so he doesn't need to change anything. His mother cooks a lot for him. This body definitely feels different from his own. He would need to make sure that he doesn't change it too much. It's the little things that make up everything. Suddenly, he heard Grotto shouting, let him come back." MC looked out from the crowd and saw the injured captain lying near the portal, exclaiming in horror that Chika was still inside. Yuichi exclaimed, "Let him calm down." Out of all of them, she was the fastest. She would be fine. He understood how he felt, but they needed to wait for backup. Matsuri hysterically asked him why he thought Chika would think that she would distract them for them. The people watching this started to discuss that this was bad, right? The Wind Guardians were a high-ranking C-rank team, right? They were wondering if anyone from the S rank would show up. Grotto fell to his knees in horror and shouted for Chika to forgive them for making her become bait. Let her forgive them for being so weak. MC, hearing this, thought that he felt like he was facing another version of his future out there, if someone didn't show up soon. After some time, he entered the portal and wondered in surprise. Did he enter the rift unconsciously? He needed to take measures to avoid being exposed. The protagonist remembered Saint Edelweiss saying that he was a fool, but that was what was so attractive about him. He heard Grotto's scream about Chika again, and, putting on his hood, noted that since he was already inside, there was no way back. Hiding his face, the protagonist quickly began to move away from the rift. Sukuna, sitting on the monster and watching him, asked in surprise, "Did someone else enter?" "Nice, let her toy not break instantly." The protagonist continued to run. He couldn't say for sure if this was the same other world, but for some reason he felt nostalgic, and all the monsters were familiar enough. As he assumed, this was the same world. Suddenly, the protagonist saw fragments of arrows and a shield. He remembered Grotto. The debris had traces of blood. Meanwhile, Chika was desperately running away from the monster. Looking back, she saw Yuichi defeat another monster. Did he succeed? And Matsuri? Is she crying or not? The girl thought about Grotto. Suddenly, she stumbled and fell. The monster approached her. The protagonist, who arrived in time, used freezing and bound the enemy with ice, covering Chika with himself. She looked at him in bewilderment. Who was her savior? Takeru said he was glad that he had time. He quickly examined the girl and noticed that she had managed to get a couple of bruises, but overall she did not seem to be badly hurt. He was about to leave. The girl stood up and thanked him for saving her life. The protagonist answered her that everything was fine. He was just passing by. Chika asked in amazement. He was just passing by? Suddenly, she recognized him. She asked him if he was the same guy they met at the entrance to the rift, right? MC remained silent in response to her question. But Chika noticed that he was wearing the same clothes and his voice. The protagonist had nowhere to go, so he told her that she had a good memory. The girl answered that it was true. She was in charge of finding new recruits in the team, so she noticed everything that was happening around her. He turned to leave. Chika apologized to him. She told him that she appreciated his concern. The protagonist asked her if that Cyclops was the boss of the rift. She told him that it was. He noted that in that case, they should get out of here quickly. Her friends were worried about her. Chika laughed happily, so everything was fine. Meanwhile, Sukuna was having fun dancing on her pet. She said that now was the time. The protagonist walked ahead of Chika, and she followed him. The girl thought, the freeze he used at the very beginning is entry-level magic. He has so much power even without ability-enhancing artifacts like her knife. Also, don't forget that he's dressed like he went out to the grocery store. And without a doubt, he walked into the rift? Why did that suddenly happen? Who is this guy really? She didn't notice him stop in her thoughts, and so she flew into his back. The protagonist reached out his hand to her. She was surprised. What is he doing? He took her knife and told her that he would borrow this from her. Then the protagonist instantly created a magical defense, which was hit by a powerful blow. He wanted to pierce the shockwave with a knife, but the knife simply broke. The armor was strong. Chika was speechless with amazement. Sukuna, and she was the one who attacked the allies, danced with joy. The protagonist launched a counterattack at the enemy and noted with annoyance that he missed. Chika finally came to her senses and screamed in surprise. What did she just see? How did he even survive? He told her that they needed to get out of here quickly. Grabbing her in his arms, he began to leave this place, deftly dodging the continuing attack. Sukuna noted that her opponent was moving away too quickly. This caught her by surprise, and he also destroyed her pet. Then she laughed and waved it all away like, oh well. Meanwhile, the protagonist, running away, apologized to Chika for breaking her knife. He will compensate for everything. He hopes that his insurance can cover this. The girl replied in amazement that everything is fine. She does not care about this knife at all. Sukuna, catching up with them, intensified her attack on them. The protagonist continued to dodge her attacks just as skillfully. He asked Chika if she had any item to sneak out of the rift. It would be cool if she had one. The girl told him that she had such a thing, a smokescreen. She activated it behind his back. Approaching the rift, the protagonist said that they were there. He asked the girl to go first, and he also asked her for one favor. Let her not tell anyone about him, if possible. Chika looked at him, smiled, and answered him. Then she understood everything. When the smoke cleared, Sukuna attacked the enemy again, exclaiming that she was going to give it to him now. But the protagonist was already entering the rift. He looked back, looked at Sukuna, and disappeared. Sukuna almost cried from frustration. She shouted at him not to leave, so that he could play with her some more. There was still an exit from the rift, so the girl decided to follow them. But when she approached the exit, it began to disappear before her eyes. She exclaimed indignantly, "Well, what is this?" They were only getting to the most interesting part. She could not do anything. Sukuna shouted into the disappearing rift that next time she would play with them to her heart's content. Meanwhile, the members of the Wind Guardians team happily hugged each other. Matsuri hugged Chika, happy that her little sister was alive. Takeru looked out from behind a tree. Several people passed by. The woman's child turned to her and pointed to the team and the protagonist. She told him not to look there. The next day, the protagonist, Araki and Takeru, came to the new school. They introduced themselves to the new class. The teacher said, it was decided that 3 students from Kazami High School, which was damaged due to the opening of the rift, would join their class. They are not only their citizens, but also their friends who will study with them. This is what they, as hunters, must protect. The teacher addressed the newcomers and told them that they will stay with them until their school is repaired. He hopes that they will become friends with their students from the Oran Academy. The newcomers were not happy with this change in their lives. The protagonist thought, what kind of situation is this? The day before, Takeru told the protagonist, when the rift appeared, each school that trains hunters decided to allocate a small space for them so as not to interrupt their training. The material that will be taught is adjusted to them, so it is closer to an internship than a transfer. The building was deliberately built larger, so it also works as a shelter. The protagonist gloomily answered him that he understands everything. Takeru was excited. For him, this is the first time. He could not even imagine that they would be sent to such an academy. And also, he had a bit of mixed feelings because Araki was also with them. The protagonist told him that he definitely wouldn't do anything here. Let him forget about him, they should enjoy life. His friend noted that he was right. Entering the school, Takeru exclaimed, as he expected, this academy is amazing in every way. Especially because of the famous huntress Sakura. There are many other graduates who are at the top of the rankings. But the main thing is that the academy selected the elite of the country, so the average level of their students is high. They allocate office space for small or medium-sized guilds that do not have bases in the main areas, or facilities that meet their requirements. The protagonist, listening to his friend's story, observed the students of this academy. He noticed that almost all the students carry weapons. To be ready for battle, right? Takeru spoke again. He heard that when the rift appeared, the huntress Sakura was nearby and took care of it. The students who were released said that she was as beautiful as she was strong in battle. Also, he wanted to ask Takeru, had he met her? The protagonist asked him why he thought so. His friend told him that she took his phone and was asking for his address to return it. The protagonist casually said that it was she who brought it to his house. She is such a wonderful person. Takeru admiringly noted that he was so jealous of him. He asked the protagonist if it was possible that they had exchanged contacts. The protagonist laughed and said, no way. Takeru noted, that's right, she just came by to return his phone. The protagonist thought that if he found out everything, it would be very bad. The guy continued, he heard that she has a crazy fan club, so let him be careful. The protagonist was surprised. A fan club? His friend told him that it was true. Who knows what they might do if they found out that she brought him a phone. He immediately took a deep breath and said, "Speak of the devil." Sakura was walking towards them. All the students were staring at her with admiration. Takeru admiringly noted that even on school grounds, she looked like an unattainable flower. The protagonist thought in surprise, "She has no friends?" Passing by them, she looked at the protagonist and greeted him. His friend's amazement knew no bounds. Takeru told him that if they didn't go to the cafeteria right now, they would be late for class. He began to quickly move away from his friend, avoiding possible questions. The guy began to catch up with him, shouting at him not to dodge the topic. Sakura went into her office at school and remembered Chika's report. She explained that she was in a completely hopeless situation, but someone helped her. Her eyes were clouded with fog from all this running, so she did not make out his face or his appearance. But she is very grateful to this person. He is her savior. After that, Sakura called the protagonist to her. He sat down opposite her. She thoughtfully said that there are limits to how long she can cover for him. The protagonist apologized to her for this. The girl, covering her face with her hands, noticed that the entire Hunter Association was in an uproar. He asked her if that was bad. Sakura didn't hide the fact that it was. They could guess the strength of the boss in the Black Rift based on his mana. This rift was D rank. The C rank, Wind Guard, team should have been able to handle it in about 10 minutes. But it turned out that an A-ranked Cyclops had appeared there. On top of everything else, the problem was the unaccounted for power that had suddenly appeared. Someone unrelated to the Hunter Association had accidentally appeared there, and no one knew whether this unknown person was a friend or an enemy. Moreover, if there was an enemy who had released such a strong magical energy as he had described, then it would become a serious problem. The protagonist noted that this would make everyone uproar, right? He apologized to her. The girl looked at him for a long time and told him that he had nothing to apologize for. She was too rude. What he did was undoubtedly the right choice. But no matter what special powers he has, he is still a simple citizen who wishes for a peaceful life for himself, and she must protect it. She had promised him that. And now she was asking him to please leave all these dangerous undertakings to them, the hunters. After all, he had parents who were very worried about him. After talking to her, the protagonist thought that she was a very good person. It was obvious why she had a fan club. Suddenly, monsters appeared in front of him. Apparently goblins. Takeru thought that he was starting to get used to these unexpected occurrences. He wanted to fight them, but he decided not to do anything, no matter how much he wanted to. After all, they had just discussed this with Sakura. Suddenly, a team appeared behind him and rushed to attack this monster. They surrounded the goblin from all sides and pounced on it. The protagonist continued to stand in place. Suddenly, the tip of a spear almost touched his face. Biodoin Soma pierced the monster through. The tip of his spear almost touched the protagonist. He noted that it was dangerous. When the monster collapsed, the guy winked at MC and apologized to him if he scared him. He asked him if he was okay. Takeru told him that he was fine. He didn't even get his uniform dirty. Then he thanked Soma. The guy was surprised. A uniform? Only then did he notice that the protagonist was wearing a school uniform. He noted that it was funny. His allies joined him, showing their respect to him with gestures and poses. Soma extended his hand to the protagonist, said his name in full, adding that he was a second-year student at Kazami High School. The protagonist stared at him in amazement. Soma laughed and asked him. He probably thought, why did he call him his full name? This is proof of his affection for him, as his future comrade. Takeru was confused, comrade, but he clearly did not think about it. His allies informed the protagonist that this is Biodoin Soma, the legitimate heir of the Biodoin Spearman. He is a young talent who is also an A-rank hunter. And also, he is the president of the fan club Oron Society dedicated to Sakura. The guy winked at him and told him that they will see each other again. The protagonist's body went shivers. This was a clear sign that he will have trouble. He saw how the hunters were performing some kind of ritual dance in a circle, and inside the circle, there was some kind of glow. The protagonist froze in surprise. Soma noticed him and shouted at him. He'd bet he was thinking what kind of Oron community this was, right? He pointed to the Sakura statue and remarked that it was to admire Sakura. She was as beautiful as a goddess. Those who worshipped her would unite and protect their city. It was the largest guild in this school that protected the peace of the civilians. MC thought, isn't this just a fan club? The guy continued, the only requirement to join their team was to love and respect Sakura. Even if a person wasn't a hunter, but just a mage or supporter, they had something for everyone. Soma exclaimed dramatically, his passionate gaze at Sakura during their lunch break. He understood everything at once. He, Takeru, would fit in perfectly with their community. The protagonist thought that he got along very poorly with this type of person. The fan club president continued, and his calmness during the appearance of the monster is not quite normal behavior. The protagonist objected to him. No, he imagined it. He was so surprised that he simply could not move from fear. Soma pretended to say that he was his fan, but at that time, Sakura interrupted them. She ran up to them and anxiously asked them, "Was there a rift here?" She asked the protagonist, had someone already taken care of the rift? He answered her that it was so. These guys took care of it. Looking back to point at them, the protagonist said in surprise that they disappeared. The next morning, walking down the school corridor, MC wondered what they wanted yesterday. He would like, if possible, not to get involved with them. But for such a large guild to be within the school, as expected, Sakura's influence here is impressive. He needs to be more careful and not interfere with their affairs. He approached the classroom and just opened the door when Soma appeared in the doorway and greeted the protagonist with a smile. Takeru greeted him back and noted that it was dangerous, so he thought he should stop doing it. The guy did not argue with him. He added that being proactive was his motto in life. The protagonist answered him that he understood it. Soma asked him why he was here. MC answered him with a question why he was asking about this. Of course, because this is his class. He looked inside and took a deep breath, looking at his new classmates. He hoped that they could get along like classmates. Soma, who was standing behind him, laughed at his hesitation. Throughout the day, Takeru directly felt how Soma was constantly watching him. Wherever the protagonist went during breaks, the guy invariably ended up next to him. Sitting in the dining room, the protagonist again caught the guy's gaze and irritably noted, "Is he making fun of him? Why the hell is he constantly watching him?" Takeru noted, "Somehow, this all looks like trouble." MC asked him if he knows anything about this guy. His friends said that he knows practically everything about him. He is the heir of the Byodoin family, a famous clan of spearmen with a 1,000-year history. He is so strong that he has been considered a prodigy since he was young. He is also one of the 5 A-rank hunters in the Oron Academy. Last year, he was chosen as one of the 20 who will lead the next generation of hunters. The protagonist told him that all this is impressive. His friend added that this guy is a high-ranking hunter their age, just like the hunter Sakura. The protagonist thought, indeed, his spear skills yesterday were not bad. Takeru laughed and said that he is a little strange, but he thinks that the protagonist will understand how good he is during the next lesson. The next lesson was held on the academy grounds, on the training ground. A brutal-looking teacher named Gori addressed the students. He told them that now was the time for the most important lesson for them, as hunters. Are they ready for this lesson? All the students answered him in unison that they were ready. They began to ask the teacher to take care of them. The protagonist, watching this scene, said somehow they were too excited for a normal lesson. Takeru answered him, "It's not just that. This is also training to become hunters." He explained to his friend, "Usually this is impossible in normal schools, with the rare exception of someone from the association coming. As expected, it will be in the schedule, like normal lessons." The protagonist clarified with him, "Hunter training?" Takeru was surprised at his question at first, and then caught himself. Right, this is the first time he sees this since returning. He pointed his finger in the direction the protagonist should look and noted that, in general, they use these sea machines to train by fighting monsters in real battles. This structure resembled a tank in appearance. Gori loaded the machine with slimes and told them that he was counting on them today. Takeru explained to the protagonist that these are doppelganger slimes. They take the form of what the teacher loads into the DS mechanism. He added that DS is an abbreviation for the mechanism of these slimes. Monsters began to emerge from the barrel of the mechanism. Takeru exclaimed in delight. He was almost sure that under normal conditions, slimes are not able to do this. He asked the protagonist, "Isn't it great?" Takeru answered him that it was, but will everything be okay? His friend calmed him down. He told him that these were bait monsters created by the magician for training, so there was no danger. The protagonist thought, magicians are people who study magic, so they also develop such magical tools? Meanwhile, the students began training in the form of a battle with artificially created monsters. Gori prompted them to hit the legs if they can't reach the neck. He added that if they act in a group, they should not forget to always leave someone to watch the perimeter. The protagonist thought in surprise, do they do this every day? They are just like firefighters. Orochi told him that he, in any case, will be out of any danger. The protagonist smiled at him and asked him, did he say something? Meanwhile, Soma called him to look at the pure, strong, beautiful ultimate technique Byodoin Soma. The guy really defeated several monsters with ease. Everyone was delighted with such a sight. Takeru admiringly said that it was cool. However, as expected, the protagonist thought that this guy liked to show off. But why was he wearing his uniform? Gori shouted that the next ones would be 3 newcomers from Kazumi High. Let them come. The coach pointed to the sea goblins and told his allies that they would be their opponents. The hunters supported the newcomers, let them hold on. If they don't understand something, don't be shy to ask them. Gori led them to the weapon stand. He told them that they could choose a weapon for a hunter or a magician. For them, as newcomers, he would recommend swords. Takeru asked his friend, did he choose a sword for himself? The protagonist answered him that he wasn't very confident in his magical abilities. Will he be a magician? His friend admitted that he was. He was very weak physically, so, without magic, he would be useless. Gori addressed them, telling them that the weak point of monsters is their neck. They are easily injured even if they are not hunters. Let them aim for their necks. The monsters are coming. Let them get ready. The protagonist, looking at the approaching goblins, thought he can cut them down with his own strength without using skills. Takeru and Orochi used fireballs. The protagonist thought twice. The monsters were approaching slowly. Gori and Soma watched the battle carefully. Even when the goblin got close enough, the protagonist continued to stand still, seemingly not taking any action. His allies dealt with their opponents, and the protagonist's goblin continued to stand. Takeru was surprised. What? Takeru told him that the DS monsters were only pretending to attack, so it was okay. The protagonist contradicted him. He definitely cut it down. Suddenly, the goblin swayed, and its head flew off. All the students whispered, "What was that? When did it do that?" More precisely, when he swung the sword? No one noticed anything. Maybe the DS mechanism is broken? But then again, that can't be. Takeru turned to his friend in amazement. The protagonist laughed and asked him what kind of stupid slime it was. How could he not realize that it was cut? He turned to Orochi. He asked him, "Right?" The guy looked at him in confusion. Then, as if he realized something, Orochi laughed and supported MC. "That's right. Doesn't that mean the mechanism is broken?" They both started laughing. Takeru asked them in amazement, "Is everything okay?" He thought, when did these two manage to become such friends? Sometime later, MC was sitting in the library. He chuckled. Even here, there is nothing useful. He was looking for a way to return Takeru to his body, but it seems that it will not be easy. And in the end, the person who can tell him the solution is the magazine he took from Takeru. On the cover of the magazine was the strongest hunter in Japan who fights in a technique that absorbs heroic spirits, the god of war, Uesugi Kikio. He was surprised, absorbing the spirits of dead heroes. This is something remotely similar to his case. After all, he took over Takeru's body. The girl does something similar, except that her soul remains in Uesugi Kikyo's body. If this is the case, could it be that Takeru is still alive? At that moment, Soma appeared next to him and greeted the protagonist sharply. The MC flinched from his scream. The guy apologized to him for scaring him. Or rather, was he surprised? The protagonist thought that he had finally merged into this peaceful life. He asked the cheerful guy what happened. Soma answered him that he was very interested in him. He really hides his true power, right? The protagonist asked him why he would suddenly do such a thing. The guy said, since childhood he had the opportunity to observe a variety of people. He is good at determining a person's abilities, but he did not see the edges of his abilities. The protagonist answered him that he is the most ordinary student with memory loss. Soma laughed and noted, he is a terrible actor, does he know that? The thing is, his stance, sword skills, endurance, they are much higher than the level of a swordmaster. He is interested in his strength. They looked at each other carefully. Suddenly Soma laughed and told him that he was just joking. If possible, he would like to try to fight him. Takeru repeated to him that he is the most ordinary student. The guy noted that for now they will leave everything as it is. He noticed the magazine that the protagonist was looking at. He asked if he is interested in the huntress Kikio. The protagonist answered him, he probably just looks at this magazine. The guy noted that she is one of the highest level huntresses in all of Japan. He didn't have a chance against her when they had a sparring match. The protagonist asked him heatedly, does he know her? Soma was surprised by his reaction, but said he was organizing a meeting of martial arts enthusiasts at his house. But she had already gone home. The protagonist disappointedly drawled that everything was clear to him. The guy added, on top of everything else, she usually sits out on the lands of the sacred mountain, and it's not easy. And her photo on the cover is a big rarity. Does he understand that? But if he uses his family connections, he can arrange a meeting with her. Takeru excitedly asked him, is he serious now? Soma chuckled. And now he is not such a quiet person as he usually seemed. He offered him an option. If he shows everything he is capable of in a duel, he will introduce him to Kikio. The protagonist had no choice but to agree to his condition. Soma told him that there were several black rifts on the academy grounds that had been cleared, but they remained. The source was given special magic and is now used for training. Naturally, some students needed permission to enter it, but since he was an A rank, he thought it wouldn't be a problem, so they could fight to their heart's content. The protagonist told him that he had a huge, furious bull behind him. The protagonist took the sword in his hands and said that the boy would introduce him to Kikio and wouldn't tell anyone about his powers. No matter what, he had to fulfill these two conditions. Soma told him that he never went back on his word. Since he had promised, he would keep his word. He urged him to start right away. Without waiting for an answer, Soma quickly attacked him with his spear. The protagonist deftly dodged his blow. The boy attacked him again, but missed again, and the protagonist didn't even counterattack him. He only noticed that his opponent had good control. Finally, he entered the fight. All of Soma's strikes and attacks were well parried by the protagonist without any effort. The guy shouted that he saw everything. Does the protagonist understand this? He sees that he is very strong. MC thought that was his line. He realized that the guy had a large spear and a bit of a showy style, so it was easy to read. So the movements he showed before were just a show. But he did not make a single unnecessary movement. Such graceful and polished actions, he makes full use of the length of his arms. This allows him to avoid unnecessary splashes of blood on him. Soma exclaimed, "The martial art of the spear. Byodoin is the mastery of silence. Isn't it funny?" The protagonist thought that only the spear does not make unnecessary noise. The guy noted that he will continue to attack. Takeru noted as expected from an A rank, but most likely, that's all. However, he did not agree to this duel for fun. He turned to the guy. He told him to dodge properly. At that moment, Soma saw his severed head fly off his shoulders. He spoke in bewilderment. It can't be. He just saw a vision of his death? The protagonist began to attack him so masterfully and powerfully that Soma himself did not notice how his neck ended up under the protagonist's sword. Takeru calmly told him that he had won. Soma looked at him in bewilderment. The bowl that was in the wall began to make terrible sounds. Soma jumped up from the ground, knelt before the protagonist, and told him that he was amazing. So he had surpassed him, after all. Let him show him more of his power. The protagonist told him that he had fulfilled his part of the deal. Soma exclaimed that he did not think so, but he did not have time to finish. A terrible sound was heard from the wall. The duelists turned around and saw a strange picture. The great bull had mutated into a minotaur. This minotaur started attacking them. Soma shouted that this was some kind of nonsense. This is simply impossible. They cannot mutate into other species. The protagonist, looking at the minotaur, thought that even he had not seen such a thing before in another world. But once, he had already fought with such a thing. He took a fighting stance. At that moment, Soma told him that he would hold him back. He should run away from here. The protagonist looked at him in bewilderment and said that if this was the only thing, he would not leave him alone. But the guy shouted out the name of his community and added that these were people who admired Sakura, and at the same time, they all share the aspirations of their goddess. And this is the protection of the peaceful life of the city and the population from monsters. He realized that the protagonist could defeat the monster with one little finger. But he was an ordinary person. If so, then he, as the head of the community, would become the embodiment of Sakura's ideals. He would fulfill his duty by protecting him as an ordinary person. Let him forgive him. He knows he wanted to hide his powers, but he still dragged him here. He just liked him. And now, just like her, he wants to become strong. He remembered himself when he was still a first-year middle school student. At his family's training ground, the teacher once again informed all the participants that the winner was he, Byodoin's Soma. He laughed at the defeated opponent back then. What was that? Said he was a hunter, but it seemed like it was all empty talk. The teacher looked at him and thought, he has such strength. As expected, he was gifted from birth. Among adults, only the clan head can defeat him. However, as expected from a genius. At this moment, Soma's father was indignant. He always told him not to be rude to his opponents. He won't get far on skills alone. True strength lies in a kind heart. Soma then spoke back to his father, the one who protects and guides people in the right way, with unbreakable intentions in his heart, no matter what, right? He was already fed up with hearing all this. He was bored. Then he summed up that he had to go. He still had to get ready for school tomorrow. Everyone had worked hard today, and he left the training ground. His father shouted at him to stop. He had not yet been told everything. But Soma willfully ignored his father's words, shouting at him that they would see each other again. He liked it when he was praised, and his talent was praised by everyone around him. It was all so nice. He had a nice house and a good appearance. Money, female attention, none of this was a problem for him. He was, figuratively speaking, a braggart with a long nose. He skipped training many times, finding it boring. He thought that life was so simple. Father talks about the heart and such, but a strong person, in his opinion, always remains strong. And the monsters are easy. Maybe they became so restless because he will soon destroy them all? One day, he was attracted by a large crowd of people. Curious about what was going on, he approached the crowd and saw several police officers covering the rift that had appeared. He said that they should forget about the team that went there earlier. Even the rescue team had not returned from there yet. This meant that the rift could soon become dangerous. What he lacked was combat experience. Therefore, he broke through the police cordon and ran to the rift. One of the citizens was surprised. Is this guy a complete idiot? They need to wait for the A-rank hunters. The officer must save that child. What will they do if something happens to him? At that moment, Sakura appeared. She apologized to everyone for having to wait for them for so long. She noted that it was dangerous near the rift. Let everyone move away from it. Meanwhile, Soma, having fallen into the rift, thought that he, the heir of his family, he always dealt with monsters easily, and everything was fine. He was stronger than the adults who surrounded him. Suddenly, blood appeared on his hand. It was dripping from somewhere above. Raising his head up, he thought, "Is he okay?" From above was a huge paw of a monster, whose claws pierced the body of a hunter from the defense group. The paw let go of its victim, and the hunter's body fell to the ground, splashing blood all around. Soma felt sick. His swallowing reflexes worked. Suddenly, he felt this terrible paw pulling him up. He thought in a panic, it was after him. At that very moment, someone activated lightning and escaped from this trap. Something incredible began to happen. He felt someone pick him up in their arms. This someone simultaneously directed a magical blow at the enemy. Everything around started spinning, whirling. The magical aura was very powerful. The paw-shaped monster was defeated. When it became quieter, he realized that a girl had saved him. It was Sakura. She apologized to him for being late. She added that everything would be over in a second. She rushed to attack the other monsters that appeared. He would have liked to help her, but he realized with surprise that his body was not moving. There were a lot of monsters. Sakura picked him up and rushed to the exit. The monster's attacks wounded her in the back. Soma exclaimed, her back was all in wounds. The girl silently carried him to a safe place and asked him if he was wounded anywhere. The guy answered her in surprise that he was okay. She told him that she was very happy about it, then let him move to a safe distance. From now on, she would show off a little. The girl rushed towards the monsters. He thought that he was very weak. He remembered his father's words, the one who protects and guides people along the right path, with unbreakable intentions in his heart, no matter what. After a while, Sakura returned to him and said that she had defeated everyone. Now everything would be fine. She took his hand and offered him to come back together. Then he decided that he wanted to change and not be weak anymore, so that when they would fight side by side with this girl again, he would not feel ashamed of his strength. He had to become much stronger than he was now. The protagonist understood what he meant. Soma entered into a fight with the Minotaur. The enemy was chaotically striking, destroying everything around him. Soma exclaimed, "Does he want to destroy all the columns? This is so wild of him." The Minotaur, however, managed to strike the guy, from which he was thrown back. The protagonist thought, the Minotaur must be an A-rank monster, he must be strong. This mutation must have been caused by something. He called out to Soma. The guy answered him. He told him to retreat. No one will break his spear. The protagonist shouted at him that he was not talking about that. His skills are amazing, that is beyond any doubt, but he is too careful. He put his hand on his shoulder. Soma felt a slight tremor run through him. The protagonist continued, "There is nothing wrong with being simple. His opponent is a monster, not a man. He just awakened the sleeping magical powers in him. This is a temporary enhancement, and later he will feel so bad that he will dream of death. But for now, let him send this monster flying." Soma felt incredibly light, and at the same time very strong. He rushed at the monster. Everything around him spun, swirled, magical energy was simply off the scale. Soma dealt his opponent such a blow that he plowed a furrow in the concrete floor. It was all over with him. Meanwhile, Soma, exhausted, said, "It was truly killer." Something ran out of the Minotaur. The protagonist caught it and clutched it in his hand. It was a parasite, which the protagonist had encountered before. A snake was peeping at them from the bushes, which later transformed into a girl next to Jean. She told him everything she saw. Jean noticed that not only the Cyclops but also the Minotaur was defeated. The girl looked at the small parasites in the bottle and complained. They made them stronger. What useless children. Jean agreed with her. She hugged him and asked if he would get him next time. He, looking at the bottle with parasites, answered her that he would get the protagonist. The girl asked him if he was so sure of his words. Jean assured her that he was. Even if they were stronger than an S-rank hunter, all people were vulnerable to them. She laughed. How familiar it was to her. She kissed him and told him not to let him slip away this time. Jin looked at Takeru's photo and said, "Who did she think he was?" He looked at the photo and remarked, "Let him wait for him, the unaccounted for. No, let him wait for him, Kusanagi Takeru." The protagonist, meanwhile, was dragging the exhausted Soma. That same night, the protagonist had a terrible dream. He was being carried in a cage, and the villagers were shouting at his back that he was a monster. Let him disappear from this world. Or better yet, let him hurry up and die quickly. He was not a man, but an otherworldly monster. He asked himself over and over again, why? After his victory over a formidable enemy, the entire population praised him. They thanked him for his protection. The knights, one and all, said that they were all under his command. He can ask them for anything. And even the king of this world addressed him as a friend and told him that his strength had weakened and he still relied on him. He really felt sorry for him. And now, all he heard were curses and threats against him, as well as wishes for a quick death. When he was taken out of the cage, he was met by the formidable prime minister, and his head was cut off. The protagonist woke up in horror. He was surprised. Was it a dream? Everything was so plausible, as if in reality. He was silent at breakfast. Pouring milk into cereal, he thought about the fact that summer vacation was coming soon. He asked Soma to arrange for him to meet Kikio during the vacation. The guy promised him that he would keep his word. He even swore on God. If he could find the key to how to return Takeru to his body, then would he disappear as expected. But he was already dying. At that moment, his parents jumped up to him. They grabbed him by the shoulders. His father asked him excitedly, "Is he okay?" His face is very pale. His mother said anxiously that he needs to go to the hospital, urgently. He smiled and began to assure his parents that he is okay. He just had a bad dream. His father noted that he had gone so far that he had lost his memory. This could be a sign of some other disease. His mother said that she could not accept the fact that something else would happen to him. The protagonist was once again convinced that Takeru was truly loved. He wanted to get this body back as soon as possible. He thanked his parents for their care. He was okay. But his parents could not be convinced. They dragged him to the hospital. While they were talking to the doctor, the protagonist was texting his friend. Takeru asked him if he would not be at school today. He answered that he was in the hospital. The friend noted that it was terrible. He expressed the hope that Takeru would recover soon. Then a photo came from him, which showed his classmates with Soma at the head. The guy was holding a piece of paper in his hand on which was written a wish for him to get well soon. A friend wrote to him after the photo asking him to forgive him. Classmates wanted to write to him through his phone. The protagonist thought with warmth, "Who is this bunch of weirdos?" At that moment, the protagonist saw a group familiar to him. He jumped up from his seat and asked them, "Are they from the Wind Guardians team?" Gato exclaimed, "It's that same guy." Yuichi covered his mouth with his hand and told him not to scream in the hospital. Takeru spoke. He saw on the news that they were injured. He's glad that they are okay now. Yuichi told him that they were discharged today. He thanks him for his good wishes. Chika looked at him and smiled. The protagonist realized she did not tell the others a word about him, as she promised. Matsuri poked Chika in the side and jokingly noted, "She is so restless. What happened?" The girl was confused, but then got out of the situation, telling her ally that she was just glad to see them. And now, they need to go. Matsura did not lag behind the girl. She wanted to ask her about something else. The team left, but Gato lingered near the protagonist. Takeru asked him, did he want something? The hunter answered him that back then, in the rift, it was him. The guy added that they are from the city of Kazami. They want to protect him. They have been together since childhood, and the Wind Guardians were also formed then, a long time ago. But everything ended like this, so he will become stronger. He looked at the protagonist and noted that this city, he saved it. Next time, he will protect. The protagonist pretended not to understand what he was talking about. The guy laughed and answered him. He is behaving correctly. But if he has problems, he's always there for him, no matter what. He's really grateful to him. After that, Gato went to his team. After leaving the hospital, Takeru's mother told him, apologizing to him, that she can't stay with him all day. His father said that his mother had a partial vacation and he also had to go to work. The protagonist reassured them that he was okay. The doctors also thought that he was fine. He would just go home and calm down. His parents asked him to walk carefully. He waved his hand at them and went home. On the way, he thought that people were kind to Takeru. They showed gratitude or concern. They said this to him, but it was strange to accept. There was a feeling of discomfort. Until Takeru returned, he would protect these people. He would do something about it. Can't the vacation start sooner? At that moment, a monster's head flew out of the alley. Someone spoke. What's wrong with him? Is vacation cool or what? What a rascal he is. The protagonist looked to see who the voices belonged to. He saw a big guy sitting on top of the defeated monster. Next to him stood a second guy, with a sword over his shoulder. They saw the protagonist. To ask Yashiro, is this the same guy, right? Yashiro confirmed that it is, absolutely. Yes, it is definitely him. The protagonist wanted to pass by, but Tu told him not to ignore him. He called him a boy who is waiting for the holidays. He's just getting rid of these monsters at work. Does he understand him? They approached Takeru. Yashiro apologized to him for the late introduction. He told him his name and the name of this formidable man next to him. To. They are A-rank hunters working for the guild Ouroboros, rank S. They came on the orders of their leader. The protagonist remembered Sakura's warning. She told him that this guild was keeping an eye on him. They are famous all over Japan. There are many bad rumors about them. It is better for him to avoid them. To noted his wariness and peacefully told him that he does not need to be so wary. Yashiro caught his ally. They only want to ask him about the incident at Kazami High School. The protagonist answered them, then let them talk to the school. The protagonist was about to leave, but Yashiro stopped him. He said that they wanted to talk to him specifically. Then he showed him the screen of his phone, which showed a photo of Takeru, and remarked that if they asked him, the protagonist had to agree to talk to them. They went to a cafe. Yashiro handed him a stack of papers. The protagonist asked him what kind of documents they were. The man answered him that these were the conditions under which they would accept him into their guild. Takeru asked what about the high school. Yashiro told him that it was just a pretense, calling him Mr. Inconstant. He handed him another paper and asked him to look at it. The protagonist read, "The manager, annual income of 50 million and more." He noticed, "These are the conditions." Yashiro smiled and told him that it was true, he was worth a lot. Let him help their guild. The protagonist thought, if he had met these guys at the very beginning, he probably would have hated hunters. He was glad that he met Sakura. Yashiro asked him what he would say to this. The protagonist, getting up from the table, told them that he refused. He did not want to be a hunter. He went to the exit, saying goodbye to them. Yashiro smiled and said, if so, then they will force him to agree. They jumped out from the table and, taking up their weapons, stood behind the protagonist. The hunters, armed, began to approach him and said that they will force him to agree. MC, with a calm face, noted that they were a little cruel. Yashiro, grinning, answered that it was true, but it did not matter. He quickly went on the attack. At that moment, To, approaching the protagonist from behind, tried to strike, but he deftly dodged and delivered a powerful kick. Yashiro, taking the sword, attacked him and shouted that they would last long enough to kill him. Suddenly, his sword took on a snake style and bent, turning into a whip. MC deftly dodged again. He smirked and noted that he had good reflexes, as expected. The hunter, waving his weapon, thought that they should immobilize him. Suddenly, To crept up from behind and, grabbing the protagonist by the arms, shouted that Yashiro was an idiot. His face was not a springboard. Let him not ignore him. He used the Poison Fang skill with a smile and tried to deliver a control blow, but the protagonist, jumping over the hunter, delivered a powerful knee blow to the back. To began to tear his muscles and immediately rebuild them until he turned into an incredibly muscular man. He raised his hand up and tried to do a swinging punch, but MC activated a Guardian Protector and blocked the attack. Yashiro, seeing this, tried to do a lightning strike to the back of the head, but did not break through the shield yet, and exclaimed that nothing good, as expected. The protagonist calmly grabbed the hunter and threw him at the other one, and then noted that this is approximately how it is. He thought that they did not seem to neglect using monster fighting skills on people. Yashiro, crawling out from under the hunter's body, said that he understood. Surely that is what the leader said. Using force will give 0 results. Then they will move on to hostage-taking tactics. In truth, they always have someone on guard in case they need to kidnap. Yes, it is his friend. The protagonist excitedly thought that they kidnapped Takeru. Yashiro, taking out his phone and showing a photo, shouted with a sly smile, "What will he do if something happens to Orochi?" MC, having calmed down, pressed him into the ground with magic and asked, "So what?" He thought that he should go and punch the guy watching over Orochi. Suddenly, a call came from Jin. The protagonist remembered the hunter's words and, picking up the phone, picked up the receiver. The leader noted that everything happened as expected from him. He saw it all. He wondered what the leader of such a large guild wants from a civilian. Jin asked, did he really not hear Yashiro? He wants him to join. The protagonist replied that he already refused. He noted that in that case, he will report him to the Hunters Association. In fact, he is just joking, and he will not tell anyone, because from now on, he will exist as his secret weapon. He will try his best to teach him that there are no obligations. For making him watch something funny, he sent him a picture. He wonders if he will like it? MC, seeing the picture of his parents lying on hospital beds, asked what he did to them. Jin hysterically exclaimed that he only gave them poison. There is no antidote in this world. Oh, these emotions. It is better than his relaxed face. The protagonist answered seriously, let him give him the antidote. The leader said that if he wants, he will give it to him. Let him come to him. He is sure that he already knows, but let him come alone. The protagonist, throwing the phone towards Yashiro, replied that of course he knows it. If he did not, they would only bother him. Sometime later, he visited his parents and noted that it was his fault. He is sorry. The MC went outside and headed to the designated place. A man came up to him and said that it was dangerous to walk around here alone. Let him take a look inside their establishment and relax. They have cute girls. Hearing nothing in response, he fell to the ground in fear. The boss came up to him and noted that he had told him to stop calling minors because they were a lot of trouble. The man exclaimed in fear that it was a demon. He replied in bewilderment, let him just do his job. After some time, the protagonist approached the restaurant. Akidna, Jin's ally, saw him and noted with a smile that they were waiting for him. The girl introduced herself and said that the leader himself asked her to accompany him. Now let him go there. They went inside and she told them that such restaurants are used as bases all over Japan. The one he had been to before was also one of them. The MC replied that he was not the one who destroyed the restaurant. Akidna said that she was aware of this. The repair costs would be deducted from Yashiro and To's salaries. They walked into the back room where the portal was. The girl stood next to him and noticed that Jin was waiting for him inside. The protagonist walked inside and saw a huge army of monsters in front of him. The leader, upon seeing him, smiled and noted that he had been waiting to meet him. It was quite exciting, right? Such a cute crowd that would listen to everything he said. The protagonist noticed how one of the goblins had been infected by a parasite and had turned into a demon. He noted with a serious face that this was his creation. Jin agreed with a smile and added that it was only to test him. A newbie named Gatu. Seeing him roar and scream was a masterpiece. The MC asked with a serious face what his goal was. He replied that he wanted to destroy all of this. All these damn rules and idiotic guilds with hunters following them. He would destroy everything and rule this country himself along with these monsters. The protagonist said that it was impossible. No matter how many monsters he and S-rank strengthened or controlled, other S-rank hunters would be able to deal with them. Jin replied that he was right, although he had other cards. He tossed him a flask of antidote and added that he was going to give it to him after he showed this kind. He had no intention of making him his enemy. The MC replied with a serious face that it was unfair. All this after he kidnapped his parents? The leader said that he understood his feelings or wanting to hide his powers. But let him think about it. Why do powerful people like him have to live like this? Because if they were exposed, they would be kept chained up in captivity, using public opinion as a shield. No one would accept him if he had a lot of power. Others would not understand it. Why is he holding back his power? In truth, does he want to go wild? Living like this is a bit cramped, right? He will change that. Power will be everything in the world. Let him join him. The protagonist, throwing the antidote on the ground, replied that he refused. This poison is the eye of the basilisk, right? He already cured his parents. Jin nervously thought that this poison is not in this world yet. How does he know about it? MC continued that he came here to pin him down. His power exists to protect his precious, peaceful days. He will fight. Those who dare to touch what is dear to him will be torn to shreds. Jin, smiling, took out his staff and ordered the monsters to attack, remarked that he was sorry that they did not come to an understanding. The protagonist used Flame Flash and began to fight off the enemies. The leader, starting to create even more monsters, exclaimed that he will not stop until he gets tired. The protagonist wondered if he is a summoner. He specifically summons them and makes them obey with magic. And this amount, this is an S-rank hunter. He can't be soft on him. MC instantly rose into the air and created an incredibly powerful explosion. Jin, having protected himself, remarked that this was as expected of an irregular. It was quite catchy. He called out to the girl watching this with a smile. Akidna asked with a smile, "Is it time to show his cards? Let him do as he wants, since it has already become his." The leader replied that he understood. Then he will gladly do so. He will use a monster to destroy a monster. Let the Hydra come here. In an instant, a huge monster with 8 heads appeared. MC was surprised that he had never seen this before. This means that there was once something like this in this world. He tried to attack the monster, but after seeing its agility, he thought that it had no reaction to pain. Does each head feel pain individually? Suddenly, the severed heads of the Hydra were restored. The protagonist, seeing this, was surprised that it can regenerate. Jin exclaimed with hysterical laughter that this monster was immortal. No matter how strong he is, he can't win. The protagonist replied that whether it's monsters or other creatures, immortality doesn't exist. He fought with such opponents all the time. Let him not look down on him. The protagonist, rising into the air, thought there can't be an immortal living being. If it's regeneration, then he'll knock it down in one go. The Hydra attacked him again. The little head tried to stop him from earning mana, which irritated him. He used freeze, and noted that the recovery took about 3 seconds. The protagonist used magic that could be quickly applied to the monster during those 3 seconds. Are there any other weaknesses? The Hydra went berserk and began to attack the protagonist even more powerfully, all the heads joining in the attack. Jin laughed maliciously and shouted at MC, no matter what he did, it would be useless. The protagonist, having dodged another blow, flew up to the Hydra from behind and said that he had found its weak spot. It was the tail. He used his most powerful magic blow from above and aimed it at the tail of this monster. There was a huge explosion. The Hydra's tail was destroyed, causing its heads to fall to the ground. The leader and his allies stared at this picture in amazement. The protagonist looked at him and told him that it was his turn now. The enemy called him worthless and activated the Hydra's heads. However, the monster no longer had the same strength, so MC quickly dealt with them. But suddenly, another head appeared. The main character, looking into the eyes, froze in place. The leader laughed evilly and noticed that he met the basilisk's gaze, and he froze. Right? Jin, Orochi is the winner. The protagonist used recovery and rushed at the guy. His opponent did not expect such agility from him. He called for help from the guardian protector. The protagonist attacked him with his magic strike, and the leader could not withstand this blow. Suddenly, an Akidna appeared in front of Takeru. She told him not to forget, she is here too. He barely managed to create a magical defense. She attacked him with incredible speed. The protagonist used physical enhancement, appeared behind the Akidna in lightning speed, and struck her in the back, sending her to her ally. Instantly flying to her, he activated explosive plowing through the defense. At that moment, the magical aura around changed. The air trembled, and the Akidna turned into a hydra holding a trident in her hands. The protagonist spoke. He knew that she was a demon. She was surprised. He knows about both poison and a demon? As she thought, this man from the prophecy, Takeru, walking towards her through the altered space, said, looking closely into her eyes, that he always kills demons. Akidna felt something strange and wondered what it was. Was it a sudden fear that had overwhelmed her? As if she had come face to face with the demon lord. What should she do now? Jin, dragging his feet, came up to her from behind. She asked him in surprise, was it him? He turned to her and told her that all the monsters and the Hydra were dead, and he had no mana left. His plan was over, she could do whatever she wanted. She told him, then maybe she should go with her plan. In truth, she was going to do it after the hunters were exhausted. The leader asked her what she was saying. Was she going to go against him? Akidna told him that she was. He became curious, and what should he do? She asked him to buy her time. The guy noted that for her sake he would do it easily. She flew up to the basilisk's head. The protagonist watched her through the protection. Jin pounced on him from behind, exclaiming, is he no longer interesting to him? The protagonist, without looking at him, struck him in the face. Jin hissed that snakes are tenacious, and again pounced on MC, intercepting his throat with a staff. Meanwhile, the Akidna, addressing the Hydra's head, said, a spatial wall separating two worlds, a small hole like a gate, will not cause much harm. But what will happen if the wall disappears? The protagonist got rid of his opponent. He heard the Akidna utter a spell that she gives birth to him, a sweet child who will kill even a god named Typhon. A spatial vortex appeared in the air, from which a black clot of magical energy stretched like lightning. In the city, at that very moment, a black rift appeared in the sky, from which monsters simply poured out. Panic began in the city. One of the residents was surprised. Why were these gates full of monsters? But he did not have time to finish his thought. At that moment, Typhon, using his monstrous strength, squeezed the protagonist into a ring with his body. He belched his deadly flames from his mouth. Jin was lying on the ground with his eyes closed. He smiled and said maliciously, it serves him right. He remembered how he met the Akidna. It was 10 years ago. He had just joined the Hunters Union. They came to one of the rifts. An ally walking next to him asked him, is this his first gate, right? Let him not worry so much, okay? The guy walking behind them noted, the first time in 13 years? That's just unbelievable. The one walking next to him noted, it must be hard for him, but let him be careful with the bags. Jin then exclaimed in response to them that he was in their care. Suddenly, a monster appeared in their path. Jin got scared and shouted to his allies that they had to run. He turned to do so, but at that moment he received a blow from the ally who was walking next to him. The guy told him, he went through the gate at such a young age, he should be strong. He was sure that he, as a newbie, could handle it himself. The allies left him. Half lying on the ground, Jin was indignant. What was that? He did not notice how a small parasite entered him. An Akidna crawled up to him and felt sorry for him. He was such a poor thing. He fell behind his friends. But he had nothing to fear. Everything was fine, she would save him. But in return, he would destroy the Hunters Union. When he woke up in the hospital, representatives of his union were with him in the room. He asked them why. They used him as bait, and he almost died. Will they not be fined for this? They should stop joking like that. One of the representatives told him that he was not a decoy. It happened by accident. The second ally shamed him. He told him, one person died, and he has a conscience to say such a thing? The young man with glasses noted, since his testimony is not confirmed by anything, nothing can be done. Such are the rules of the union. A little later, going out into the hospital yard, Jin felt the presence of an Akidna. Without turning around, he told her that he would accept her conditions. He would destroy the union of hunters. He would do everything as long as she gave him strength. Jin drank a small parasite from a test tube. After he was discharged from the hospital, they raided the evening city. They attacked those who abandoned him in the rift. To asked him, holding one of the offenders by the hair, is it really okay not to kill them? The leader answered him that he did not understand anything. Leaving them alive and seeing hell is much more fun. He turned to the Akidna and told her with a smile, this is where it all begins. He offered her to destroy everything. He was still smiling, continuing to lie on the ground. Jin noticed. His revenge stopped halfway, but he had it. He called on the Akidna to take action. Suddenly, he heard a terrible explosion. Rising, he saw the protagonist, who soared upward. The leader cursed. This couldn't be. Why is he still alive? The Akidna, sitting on Typhon, laughed ominously. The protagonist thought, such power doesn't work, right? This creature is still quite tenacious. The Akidna exclaimed with admiration, this is simply magnificent. This is the highest power. She began to attack MC, but all her blows were successfully repelled. She asked him in bewilderment, come on, what's wrong? He's just dodging. This child that is under her and she herself united with each other and became the strongest creature. Now, even they won't be able to ignore her. The protagonist continued to dodge her attacks. He thought that Takeru's body was at its limit. If he didn't end this quickly, he would be finished. The Akidna was enjoying her greatness. She spread her wings, creating a powerful stream of dark energy. Enjoying the unity with the monster, she shouted to the protagonist that there was no way out. This will work, won't it? This is the best feeling, the feeling of total power and freedom. The protagonist, while she was enjoying her power, was looking for her weak spot. He noticed that she was having fun here, right? He guessed where the monster's weak spot was. Takeru activated a fire magic arrow and rushed up to where the Akidna was sitting. She asked him if he could stop being rude to the lady. Let him die right now. The Akidna began to throw her attacks at him. The protagonist used an air blast, and while the monster was writhing, arching and growling in pain, the protagonist delivered his strongest blow to the Akidna. She was whirled in a whirlpool of dark energy. She exclaimed in confusion. What was going on? MC noted that since she controls everything, it would be easier to deal with her than with the Hydra. The Akidna angrily exclaimed, "Who is he? Let him just die already. She will change everything now." The protagonist understood that her consciousness was collapsing. She could no longer control Typhon's power. Akidna continued to spew curses and threats at Takeru, saying she would do it. She would destroy him, his family, his friends, everything that was dear to him. She would destroy absolutely everything. The protagonist calmly watched her death throes. Akidna did not understand why. She had obtained this power. Why was she still afraid? Even they would not be able to mock her now. They would not be able to do this. She remembered how her boss had once asked her if it was true that she had returned after being defeated by a human. She had told him that it was also just a small request. Then, he had told her teacher Ryer to discipline his subordinate properly. They did not need weaklings. You couldn't even play with her. She had felt hurt then. She thought that she should pull herself together. This weakness was only in her head. It was true that she was weak then, but definitely not now. She will take revenge on all the people who mocked her. She will do everything to drive them to despair. She will break her main offender. Looking at the protagonist, the Akidna noticed, and here's why. She will start by killing this man from the prophecy they are looking for. The protagonist, meanwhile, remembered his last campaign in another world. They made a stop and talked with Edelweiss. She told him that this time, many people participated in the journey with them, but from time to time, it is not bad. He agreed with her. It was quite crowded. Edelweiss said, was it possible to refuse? They even offered to join the party to subdue the demon lord. He agreed with her that it was dangerous. Besides, he did not think that they could catch up with him. The girl smiled and answered him that he was right about that. He leaves his horse and suddenly starts running. Or he decides to climb the cliff. She asked him if he really couldn't trust them. Images flashed through his mind of the knights admiring him almost every minute, saying what a wonderful power he had, as expected of a messiah. So he told her that it was easier for him to be alone. She looked at him, and in a quiet voice told him that she was here too. The protagonist thanked her for always helping him with his wounds. Back then, he had only scratched the surface. But now that he knew the location of the Akidna's real body, all that was left was to kill her. He began to act on his plan. The Akidna noticed that his movements had become boring. Hadn't he said that it would be easy? The protagonist thought, the problem is that Takeru's body has reached its limit. He can no longer use strong spells. The same for the Akidna. Typhon is most likely absorbing her life force to move. If that's the case, then he needs to kill the Akidna. She asked him as if reading his mind. He understood where the Hydra gets its power from, right? It's useless to wait for her to die. Typhon is also absorbing the powers of the people of this world. She continued that Typhon's followers were pouring into Japan. Should they cross the sea? The Akidna added, no matter what he does, everyone will die. He thought, if that's true, then he needs to quickly return to the other side. But will Takeru's body be able to move after he kills her? What should he do? She laughed. What kind of expression is he making? Okay, she'll show him something. Creating a semblance of a system window, the Akidna showed him what was currently happening in the city. She added that if he kills her, then Typhon's power will go out of control. Therefore, he can't kill her. The protagonist stretched out his hand and created a magical sparkling ball. Akidna exclaimed in confusion. What was he planning? Didn't he hear her? What would happen if he killed her? At this time, in Tokyo, Japan, in the center of the chaos, Gato appeared with his allies. He exclaimed that he would protect them all. The boy activated a protective barrier and used a whirlwind to attack. Chika began to summon monsters to her. She told Yuichi that they had appeared. Her ally told her that he was ready. Yuichi used a large spinning spear. Matsuri healed her injured little sister and told her that she was now healthy. The girl added that she was close to shelter, so let her do her best. Her mother looked at the events in fear. Matsuri told her to go to shelter too. The mother thanked her brave daughter. Meanwhile, Soma exclaimed, "They are the ones from the Oran Society. Let everyone admire Sakura, and also let everyone unite in the name of her beauty to support her beautiful ideals. They exist to protect the peace and citizens of this city from the devilish monsters." One of his allies noted, "As expected of the president. At this rate, they are not far from being S-rank." The girl from the team noted that this was epic. Soma did not notice how a huge monster approached him. It grabbed the guy, squeezed him in its fist, and lifted him high into the air. His allies were amazed at this turn of events. Soma noted that the S rank is still a distant dream. He thought about Sakura. The girl, meanwhile, visualized a map of the city and remotely controlled the attacks. She was coordinated with locations and targets. She sent a beam of justice to the next target, which was Shibuya Station. The employees, having tracked the target, reported to her that the elimination of a large monster outbreak in Tokyo was complete. Sakura asked them to expand the search to the Kanto region. The first engineer told her that everything was ready. His assistant was amazed. She had superhuman strength. The main one noted, "This is S-class for him." Sakura said no matter who gets in her way, she will definitely defuse it. At this time, the protagonist continued to activate his magic power. Akidna was surprised. How powerful is this power? She has never seen such a thing. Besides, she couldn't stop it. She realized that her subordinates were evaporating. The protagonist recalled Edelweiss's question. He really can't trust them? He thought it was because of his strength, which surpassed other people. He distanced himself from them before they did this to him. But this was wrong. He went over his allies in his mind, Gato, with his assurance of help, Sakura, with her sincere gratitude to him, and Edelweiss, who was always by his side until the end. The protagonist thought that all this was wrong. He was too proud of himself to look around. Takeru turned to Jin. He told him that most people would not become strong, but if he looked around carefully, he would find other people. The protagonist also thanked the Akidna. She asked him in confusion, what was he doing? MC told her that she helped him understand that he was not fighting alone. He created one of his best weapons. The Akidna said, addressing Typhon, that she was very sorry. It seemed that she still wanted to save her life. She would completely let him go, let him absorb her life force more freely. Then she turned to the protagonist and offered him to end this one last time. With this, she would send him to the next dimension, let him die here and now. The protagonist asked for forgiveness from the owner of his body. He added that it would be a little difficult after that. MC activated his weapon called Thunder of the Doomsday Lightning and launched it at the Hydra. Jin watched in bewilderment. The Akidna screamed in amazement that it was impossible. There was a powerful explosion that hit the Akidna too. She fell and realized that the spatial wall was collapsing. He didn't just kill her Typhon, he wiped him off the face of the earth. It was a power that surpassed what humans were capable of. She crawled and thought, what was this? Jin extended his hand to her. He addressed her. The protagonist told her that he wanted to ask her something. What prophecy was she talking about? The Akidna answered him that it was as strong as his. At that moment, a dark knight in armor appeared from the spatial hole with a sword named Dark, who pierced her through. She opened her eyes wide in surprise. The protagonist looked at the knight in bewilderment. The warrior pulled the sword out of her body. The Akidna thought in surprise, her wound is not regenerating. She is dying, isn't she? Jin screamed in horror and crawled towards her. He thought it was nice to work with her. She crawled towards Jin. He remembered the time he told her that they would be using each other anyway. They would have to get along with each other to some extent. Akidna choked on her food then. To mockingly asked her, does she not tolerate spicy food well? There's something cute about her. Jin then added, turning to her, that he found something suitable for her. He gave her a bracelet. Akidna put it on her hand and remarked that it was very beautiful. He then thought, it was just a bracelet. It was not bad. Jin said that this was a guild of wanderers who would not fit into the Hunters Association. She would have to join them too. Her ally crawled towards her. She, gathering the last of her strength, told him that she had fun with him. She kissed him goodbye and fell silent forever in his arms. His body shook with bitter sobs for her. Then he jumped up and rushed at the protagonist. He shouted at him that he would kill him. At that moment, a fist appeared from the spatial hole, which dealt Jin a very strong blow. He was thrown to the side, and he fell next to his beloved Akidna. A joyful Sukuna appeared from the rift, who clarified, is he alive? This was bad for her. Ryer turned to her and spoke admonishingly. Did he tell her not to go alone? She answered him that he was late. The two of them, both he and Dark, were too fast. The princess will scold. Ryer turned to Dark and told him that he should listen too. Sukuna objected. Dark cannot speak, so it will be bad if he says something like that. Ryer was indignant. It is, first of all, her fault. The protagonist interrupted their squabble and asked them, who are they? The visitors stared at him in amazement. Then Ryer apologized to him. He told him his name and introduced him to his allies. About Dark, he noted that he was a Dark Knight, even they did not know his real name since he could not speak. They themselves came up with a name for him. The protagonists became wary. They were not flattering at all now. He also realized that they were strong. If he showed more strength and fought, then Takeru's body would be broken. What should he do? Ryer understood his mood. He asked him not to be so wary. Today, they came here only to take care of that traitorous Akidna. They have no intention of fighting him. Sukuna, like a true child, rushed to MC. She asked him to play with her. But Ryer chained her up. She was indignant. What is he doing? He answered her. He already told her that the princess would be angry with him. Ryer said that he still had something to do. He activated the magic figures, which penetrated the Akidna's body with their chains, and took out a small black cube from her, destroying her parasite. He said, showing the thing to the protagonist, that they will collect it. The protagonist asked him what it was. Ryer told him that it was a trade secret. He turned to Dark and Sukuna and told them to follow him to the exit. Takeru asked him if he thought they could leave here. Sukuna's ally objected to him in response. He was tired, right? Let him not take it to heart. They will meet again soon. The girl also said goodbye to him, and they disappeared. The protagonist thought that they were demons. So this is the other world that he knows about? He picked up Jin, who was lying on the ground. Next to him was the same bracelet that he once gave to the Akidna. The protagonist placed this bracelet on the arm of his defeated opponent. When Jin was arrested, the media trumpeted that many people had died. The damage caused by this large outbreak was unprecedented. The ringleader behind this incident was arrested by the Hunters Association. The police reported that he was not resisting arrest, so they would transport him like this. Jin remembered the protagonist's words about how most people would not become strong, but if he looked around properly, he would find other people. He thought. He looked at the association. They were never on the side of justice. He was sure that he did not have much time left. Suddenly, someone attacked the car in which he was being transported. It overturned and Jin appeared from the broken glass, wondering what had happened. At that moment, he heard Yashiro's voice. His ally remarked, "What a gloomy face." Thanks to him, Ouroboros was disbanded. Yashiro, along with To, pulled him out of the car. Yashiro asked him, handing him his staff, "Isn't their way an eye for an eye?" They hit him. He hits them back. They should settle this properly. Jin perked up, took his staff, and said that only those who are ready to die go with him. He will end this. Meanwhile, the protagonist left the hospital with his parents and thought that summer vacation was coming soon. Ryer came to the princess and told her that as she ordered, they dealt with the Akidna and returned the stolen Pandora. The princess, in whose arms Sukuna was sleeping sweetly, listened to him attentively. He continued that, also, he let go of the guy, who, as it seemed to him, was the Messiah from the prophecy. She answered him that it was good. But it was not time for Sukuna yet. The girl at this time woke up and screamed that she wanted to play with her brother. Princess patted her head, looked at the Dark Knight, and told him that it was possible, right? Meanwhile, at the Hunter Association headquarters in Japan, S-rank hunter, Lionheart, Renya Sogo told his allies that they had now contacted all S-rank hunters for an emergency meeting. At least, that was what he thought. Only 5 people came? This was too strange. S-rank hunter Star Karen Saijo asked him, "Why at this time?" Sakura was also confused. Why didn't they come? Renya remarked irritably, "Is he wrong?" S-rank hunter Hiro Hideo Igarashi objected to him. Since Jin was stripped of his S-rank, there were only 49 left. Renya said in a dissatisfied tone that he had rounded up. S-rank hunter Abyss Assassin Tenku Hayabusa hiccuped in fear. Sakura pointed out that since they were the only ones who responded, she thought there was no point in yelling at them any further. Renya apologized to them. Karen turned to him. She said, "Let him speak. Holding meetings in real life, in such a place, and at such a time. Weren't such meetings outdated?" She was a little lazy. She continued. They were going to discuss a rather private topic. She suggests that they all go somewhere nice, like a bar, and eat something delicious. Renya was indignant. Have they forgotten why the association is needed? Have they forgotten what the association was for? Do they want to escape from their responsibilities? If they spent taxes on all sorts of bars and brothels, they would be burned alive. Karen told him, "They are already working hard." She thought that she was doing it rather lazily. Renya snapped at her. They, private hunters, do whatever they want, and they, from the association, have to work for them. Karen cut him off. Enough chatter. She didn't care what they said about them. They were protecting them anyway. Renya yelled at her. What was she saying? Tenku hiccuped again in fear. The girl pointed out to the Lionheart that his face was too scary. Hideo yelled at Tenku to pull himself together already. Let him sit up straight. Hadn't he always told him that slouching was bad for him? The guy answered him. He asked him to stop calling him by his name, hadn't he? And he was so loud his ears were hurting. Hideo exclaimed that he was cool. At 24, being in S-class and without a girlfriend. The guy answered him that talking to an old man was tiring. Hideo turned to Karen. What would she say? How does she like this guy? She answered him thoughtfully, obviously thinking about something of her own, that this is her type. This is a kind guy, ready to do anything for the weak. Takeru looked at her in surprise. She looked back at him and told him, but he is not right for her, let him forgive her. The abyss assassin feigned indignation. He was rejected without even being recognized. Can he go home? Kikio asked Sakura what she thought about this. The girl answered him that she was not interested in a relationship. Takeru muttered that he was going home. The bearer of the Lionheart title turned to him. Let him keep his chin up. He will definitely find a suitable partner soon. Renya interrupted their senseless squabble. At that moment, the president of the Mai Hunters Association entered the office. He said he is glad that they are all in a good spirit. He greeted everyone. Renya greeted him joyfully and told the allies to listen to him. The president himself was with them, so they should behave more modestly. Everyone immediately fell silent. Mayoi apologized to them for calling them together so urgently today. Renya would contact those who were absent and inform them. He suggested that they begin the discussion. Mayoi said that first they would discuss the latest attack that happened the other day, which was done by Hebikawa. Karen noted that this guy was literally running after them. He just had a big ego and a guild. He smiled and said that they were also able to confirm the involvement of demons in this. Sogu was surprised and Karen asked what other demons. Mayoi said that the people who live inside the gate are strangers, to put it simply. Tenku asked if he knew that there was life beyond the gate, but hadn't it fallen a long time ago? He said that it was normal that he didn't know, since they only appeared once 20 years ago, defeated him, and never appeared again. Karen wondered why they weren't aware, and for what reason. Sogo said that demons only look like humans. In reality, they are ruthless monsters. Mayoi noted that based on his report, it was impossible to establish a dialogue with them. And if they announce their existence publicly, there will be people who disagree with them, and others will try to contact them, and since the future is unclear, the existence of demons is a secret from now on. And for that reason, only the S ranks present will know the truth. Tenku wondered if they should participate in this cover-up. Mayoi smiled and noted that it was for the good of society. Sakura remembered how some people killed her parents, and suddenly she thought in surprise, she thought that her parents were killed by humanoid monsters. Could it be that they were demons? Mayoi looked at the screen where Takeru's photo was and said that the next topic is related to this guy. He destroyed the Ouroboros guild single-handedly. Karen was surprised and Tenku asked, but didn't he say before that Hebikawa was caught by the association? Sogo said that by the time they got to him, he had already managed to leave, and they found him through the cameras. Mayoi said that he wasn't a member of the Hunters Association, so they needed to see what kind of person he was. If they had any information on him, they wanted to hear it. After a while, he sat down in a chair and exclaimed, and in the end, everyone remained silent. Sogo came up to him and asked what the point of this farce was. They didn't just call these 4 people for nothing, did they? Mayoi said that he was a lousy actor, and he remarked that his stomach was churning from the stress. He said that it was a good performance, and he believed that he would keep it a secret. Sogo frowned, and he happily said that his expression was something special. He bowed and said that he would continue to act his part, so he was leaving. After Sogo left, Mayoi turned on the screen and looked at Takeru's photo, asking what awaited them now. Meanwhile, Sakura was walking down the hallway and was thinking dissatisfied that Takeru's name had come up at such an important meeting, and no matter how much she hid it, it was useless now. He was so careless, and he still wanted to hide it? First, she needed to talk to him. If it was Takeru, then she was sure he had a reason. She looked at her phone and sent a message to the protagonist to contact her. Suddenly, Mayoi called out to Sakura and said that the incident happened because of the Ouroboros. They poisoned his parents. The association was not going to do anything to him and asked her not to worry. He would invite him to resolve the situation. Sakura asked in surprise, was she the only one he told this to? He answered, because she was friends with him and he maintained their friendly relationship. She whispered to herself in confusion. Friends? She and Takeru? Is that really true? Sakura looked at her phone again and thought that their relationship was different from what was written here. Suddenly, Momiji called out to her and happily ran up to her, exclaiming that she had come to her. Her eyes looked like this. Sakura smiled and noted that she was just lost in thought. Momiji burst into tears and said that finally her job allowed them to see each other. She had missed her. She tried to calm her down in bewilderment and apologized, asking her not to cry. If she forgave her, she would do anything. Momiji took her hands off her eyes and looked at her and asked, "Is this true?" Sakura happily agreed and she looked at her with admiration. Momiji handed her the phone to her and asked her to go there. The following week, Takeru was walking in the city center and thinking that there were a lot of people here. It was summer after all, but he still needed to buy things for himself. Only a week had passed since the incident, and they had already built the buildings. It seems that the restoration department of the association worked hard here. In any case, he is happy to have bought a new phone, since his old one broke during the battle with Typhon. He also took camping gear. Suddenly, Momiji hit his leg and fell. The protagonist knelt down and apologized, asking if she was okay. She noted that it was her fault. Suddenly, he noticed a familiar ribbon on her hair, and Sakura came up to them, looking at Takeru in surprise. He happily greeted her and asked if they were shopping with their sister. Suddenly, Sakura indignantly asked. She texted him. Why didn't he answer? She was waiting for his answer. The protagonist asked her to wait. His phone broke, and he wanted to text her right after buying a new one. Momiji looked at her in fear and remembered how she said that she was ugly when she was angry. Grandma smiled and noted that she was just lonely because of her favorite idiot. She looked at them with admiration and called out to Sakura. She exclaimed, "So this brother is her boyfriend?" Suddenly, silence fell in their company and she awkwardly began to deny it. Momiji exclaimed happily, "She should not hide it, it is normal for their age." Sakura exclaimed, "It is true, he is her friend." Takeru looked at her questioningly and she said in bewilderment that he is just an acquaintance. Momiji asked, "So they are not dating and not friends?" The protagonist awkwardly said that Sakura is quite popular at school. Being her friend is a real honor. He was just surprised. Momiji happily asked, "Is it true?" Takeru exclaimed that everyone wants to be friends with her, and she was surprised by this. She wants to know more about her sister at school, so she asked him to go shopping with them. After a while, Sakura, Momiji and Takeru were walking through the mall. Sakura tried on a dress and the protagonist chose a sword, after which they took ice cream and sat down to rest on a bench. Meanwhile, Chika happily raised her glass of drink and exclaimed, "They almost got B rank." Did their efforts bear fruit? Maroru exclaimed, but their tasks did not change. Nama noticed that since he failed to close the gate, he was in no mood for fun. The girl asked them to relax and have fun at least now. Suddenly, the girl noticed them around the corner and, surprised, spat out the drink. She asked, "Is this a date?" The girl exclaimed with admiration, "How romantic, she wants to hear their story." Nama called out to Maroru and asked, "Is something wrong? Why is his face so serious?" He is shaking, probably overexcited by their promotion. Maroru said that he does not like to relax and he exclaimed, "He is too serious." Momiji exclaimed happily, "It is so fun here." After a while she was riding the carousel and Takeru and Sakura were happily watching her. Momiji waved at her and asked her to look here. She waved back and called out to the protagonist and said that it was not nice to lie. Takeru apologized, it was not quite a lie. Sakura looked at him carefully and thought that he was not bad after all. He fought for his parents, she was sure he was a kind person inside. The president said that he wanted to invite Takeru, but he speaks as if he had known him for a long time. Why is that? Who is he, and does he really have amnesia? Even if he says that they are friends, she knows nothing about him. Sakura called out to the protagonist and he asked, "The carousel stopped, but Momiji has not returned yet?" He asked fearfully, "It can't be. Where is she?" Meanwhile, Momiji was happily walking through the amusement park and saying that her sister had looked at him so often, so she will leave them alone so that they cannot be ashamed of their love. She would become their Cupid. When suddenly she noticed a little boy sitting not far from her and crying. Momiji went up to him and asked if he was lost. She offered him to find his mother together, when suddenly a monster appeared out of nowhere. The man exclaimed in fear. It was a rift and everyone had to save themselves. Momiji grabbed the boy's hand and said that they had to run. It was okay, it was not scary, but he should not let go of her hand. Sakura and Takeru began to look for her in fear. She called her and asked her to be found. The protagonist asked her to calm down and offered her to look from above, although it would be better to go to the shopping center and report her missing. Suddenly, a crowd of people ran up to her and exclaimed, they were saved. A rift appeared behind them and the monsters began to advance. They began to ask to hurry up and deal with this. Sakura sighed in fear and Takeru, noticing her condition, cried out, "Did any of them see her sister?" A 5-year-old girl, dressed the same as her sister with a bow in her hair. The woman said that she probably saw her, and she was near the rift. Sakura very quickly went to the rift, and the main character followed her. Meanwhile, Momiji looked out from behind the bushes and looked at the monster. She grinned and said that they were too slow to escape from there. Momiji hugged the boy and said that everything will be fine. Her sister is very strong and she will definitely come to save them. The boy asked, "Is it true?" Momiji agreed, so they are hiding here and waiting for her. When suddenly the monster appeared in front of them, and Sakura ran with all her might, remembering how her parents asked her to run away from there and protect her sister. Mom smiled and said that everything will be fine and they will catch up with them soon. Sakura stopped in the middle of the street and said in fear if she loses her too. In front of her, her figure appeared, holding little Momiji in her arms. Sparks of lightning formed around her body. Takeru called out to her and pointed to where the monster attacked her sister and the boy. Sakura called out to her in fear and thought that she needed to become faster and faster. Just a little, but it didn't work. Sakura called out to Momiji in fear when Takeru suddenly appeared next to the monster and kicked him in the face, saying that if he scares people, he will not make a good mascot. The protagonist used the freezing technique and a magic seal appeared from his hand, which formed ice around the monster. After a while, Sakura and Momiji left the police station and she thanked him for waiting. Takeru asked if they were done with everything yet. She agreed that she had informed the police and they had also found the boy's parents. Sakura called out to the protagonist and thanked him, because as a hunter, she had to keep her cool. In the end, he had to use his powers. Takeru awkwardly asked her not to worry about it. She can always rely on him, although he is mostly the one causing her problems. Momiji happily called out to him and thanked him. The protagonist asked her not to run away from her sister anymore, as she was very worried. She did well to protect that boy. Momiji happily exclaimed that she was praised. Sakura asked in confusion, "He moved like an experienced fighter. Who is he really?" She does not want to suspect him anymore. Takeru said that she was right, and in fact. Suddenly Momiji came between them and said that they shouldn't fight. They need to make peace, a kiss of reconciliation. Everything will pass if they kiss. The protagonist awkwardly asked her to calm down, and Sakura smiled and apologized. She's too stubborn sometimes. Does he mind walking home together? After a while, they were walking home and Takeru said that they seemed very close and he was even a little jealous. Sakura said that she sometimes spoiled her. The protagonist smiled and said that if so, it was very sweet, and she noted that Momiji was her treasure. Their parents were killed when she was very young, so she replaces them. Because of her weakness, she often felt lonely, and to make up for her guilt, she decided to become stronger. Becoming a hunter, she followed her goals first and foremost. She believed that if she became stronger, she would be able to protect all her loved ones, and first of all, Momiji. She knows that it sounds stupid, but he was more fortunate with muscles than with brains. The protagonist said that he understood her perfectly. Sakura said that she would like to live in a world where she can breathe easy, because now they don't even give her a break. Takeru noted that this is in her spirit. He probably won't be able to say it next time, but he's glad he met her. She was surprised and asked why he was saying that. Takeru awkwardly said that his memory might return soon, and if that happens, his current memories will probably disappear. In fact, he's not the real Takeru now. Sakura pointed out that amnesia is quite a challenge, but even if he forgets her, he'll still be her friend. The protagonist happily thanked her. Sakura asked what they should do as friends. They looked at each other in surprise and then at the phone. Takeru asked if they could skip the formalities then. Sakura hesitantly said that she'd try, but she was shaking a little. It was all because of Momiji. Meanwhile, Soma happily greeted Takeru and exclaimed how clear the weather was today, and it would be a pain if it rained. Was this his first time climbing Niigata? He hadn't been here for a long time. There used to be a lot of tasty eateries here, and the grass was greener. After some time, on the sacred mountain Yozumi, Kikio was sitting in the middle of the hall, and the deity ordered her to return the body of the real Takeru. They moved along the mountain, and the protagonist thought about the fact that they had already climbed quite high, but his body had become even lighter. There is a high concentration of mana in this forest. Soa noticed, as expected, he noticed that these mountains are a great place to build a temple. Takeru looked at him questioningly and asked what he meant. He smiled and said, "Something like a portal to worlds other than the gate." He had heard tales about demons with tails, right? So they appear in places like this. Does it sound like a plot from a manga or a game? All the stories start the same way, but it is still a little dangerous here. Only S-class hunters know about such places. Takeru thought about it and then asked why he told him. Soma said because he is an honorary member of their club, and he wouldn't tell anyone else about it, would he? If monsters came out, they would be taken care of right away. There were many exorcists in Japan, but the Uesugi family was especially respected. They protected Japan for 200 years. The entire clan was destroyed by a monster that appeared in this place. They walked to the edge of a cliff, where there was a good view of the area. Soma noticed that he was sealed by Uesugi, Kikyo's sister, and the only survivor was Kikio herself. She had been maintaining the seal all this time. Takeru said that this was a hard fate, and he asked, now does he understand why that magazine was so rare? The protagonist asked, now he wonders what she is like in real life. In the photo, she looked like a pretty calm person. Soma looked at him in bewilderment and asked displeasedly, what again? Because of their family connections, he has known her since childhood, and she is a real demon. She looks cute, but in reality, she is a demon. She is a monster among monsters. Suddenly, an enemy appeared behind him, and noticing this, Takeru ordered him to turn around. Soma parried the attack, and Kikio said that he was not bad. She saw that he was continuing to train. Well done. Soma called out to her, and she happily exclaimed that there was no time to chat. He grumbled discontentedly that she was heavy, and she asked, was he discussing the girl's weight? This was a minus point, and she also heard him. What kind of monster among monsters? Kikio threw him into the wall, and Takeru thought that she was somehow different from his expectations. Kikio put the sword behind her back and said, he is so rough. Takeru rolled his eyes and thought, as with a child. She turned to him and said, "The next one, if he wants to go further, he must show her what he is capable of." She swung her sword, but he deftly dodged, and Kikio noted that he was different from ordinary hunters. Around the protagonist's hands appeared magic bracelets with which he repelled her attacks. Kikio struck again and again and thought that he blocked all her attacks, strengthening his hand and waiting for the moment. It seems there is experience in battles. Unexpectedly, Takeru used a secret move, and she did not notice how his hand was near her. Kikio said that he was naive and using Kagetora, Shadow Tiger, raised the tip of the sword to the sky, after which the blade began to burn with flames. She sarcastically asked how she sees that this is beyond his power. Unexpectedly, Takeru waved away her attacks with his hand, and she looked at him in surprise. He took a sharp stone and swung at her. Kikio said that he was a Beishiram and deftly dodged the attack. The protagonist thought, "What was that?" Kikio smiled awkwardly and apologized. "If they continue, everything will end badly. He really is strong, so he passed the test." Takeru wondered, "A test?" She noted it was dangerous for the weak from here. Was he Soma's friend? He kept talking about his strength. Kikio showed him the letter from Soma and squeezed it in her hand. After a while, Soma was being carried by a ram, and she asked, "So he wasn't a hunter?" The protagonist replied that he was a normal civilian. So why did he come all the way here? He needed them to exorcise the spirit that possessed him. Did she know there was an incident that left him with memory loss and some powers, but he wanted to become normal again? Kikio said that he wasn't that normal. Takeru noted, since she was fighting with spirits, he thought she must know something. She said that wasn't exactly true. She didn't think he was lying after all, but he really wanted to exorcise the ghost. The protagonist agreed, and she asked if he would be okay with discussing this further at her estate. After some time, they came to the estate and Takeru immersed himself in the hot spring. He thought about how they clearly hadn't had guests for a long time, which was why they were so excited. The villagers exclaimed joyfully, "The lady brought the groom. Everyone should quickly greet the guests." He thought about how the sky was so clear here. This was not the case in the other world. Somehow he hadn't thought about it before. So does the other world have its own universe? Or does the concept of a star have a different meaning? There are still cultural differences, but they are so similar and even have their own hot springs. Takeru imagined Edelweiss in a hot spring and she slapped him in displeasure. She said she would go first. He apologized for not hearing her. The protagonist pushed these thoughts away and thought he should have forgotten. But how can you forget something like this? Soma came to his senses. Suddenly, Takeru felt someone's presence and hid behind a stone. Kikio was standing at the entrance and thinking about how he hid when he felt movement. But what now? Kikio was pouring warm water from the hot spring on herself, while Takeru was sitting quietly behind a rock and thought, why didn't she notice that he was already sitting here? Didn't the staff warn her about him? And he ended up hiding, so she had to hurry and escape. She sighed heavily and said out loud that she was too bad at communicating with people. It was unrealistic, but she had to keep trying because it was for her family. Kikio exclaimed decisively she could handle it because her sister believed in her. Takeru looked at her out of the corner of his eye and thought she was completely different from during the day. Suddenly, she felt something and broke the rock and asked, "Who was there?" The protagonist looked at her in fear and Kikio became embarrassed. Meanwhile, in the morning, Kikio wished him good morning and exclaimed, "Did he really wake up?" The protagonist looked at her questioningly and thought that her usual behavior had returned in its repertoire. She asked in confusion, "Is something wrong? Maybe he remembered her naked?" Takeru began to deny it with displeasure and she apologized to him. It was her fault. Kikio asked him to sit there and offered to learn more about his spirit. She asked him to close his eyes and concentrate, listening to his heartbeat, and now he should imagine himself from the outside. Incredible concentration, as if he had disconnected from the outside world. She approached him and thought how obedient he was. Her family members can see spirits because of their worship of the gods, and she knew from the beginning that he was lying, but the guy did not seem like a liar at all. Kikio approached his face and whispered, "She will look inside him." Suddenly, a field of beautiful flowers appeared in front of her. Kikio looked around in surprise and said how beautiful and calm it was, but there was a hint of sadness. Behind her stood the headless figure of Takeru holding a sword. Kikio pointed the tip of her sword at him and said, "Onbei Shiramandai Sawaka." She is the incarnation of Bissamon. She attacked the monster and a memory of a tree with bodies lying nearby appeared before her eyes. He deftly intercepted her blow and threw her aside, ordering her to get out of here. Kikio jumped away from Takeru and said, "Onbei Shiramandai Sawaka." This power, why is he really here? A blade appeared before the protagonist's eyes and he used magic, flying out of the building with a shockwave. She said that he would not escape. Takeru thought that she was seriously trying to kill him. He rushed to run, releasing magic balls at her. Suddenly, Kikio appeared on the side and he used a shield holding her. Takeru thought that she was the strongest hunter he had ever met, and he could not hold back. He used a gust of wind and she was blown away by the wind, after which she felt the ribbon from her hair was blown away by the wind. The protagonist landed on the ground and thought, did she stop? Kikio cried out pitifully, her ribbon, it was a memory of her sister. The protagonist awkwardly apologized to her. Meanwhile, on the land of memory, the hunter approached the tree and exclaimed in surprise, it was huge. Kikio called out to him and said that this was a forbidden area. The hunter smiled and asked her not to be such a bore. He was ordered to free an old friend, and after such a long journey around the world, he should be met differently. He swung his sword, when suddenly the space around him began to thicken, and it became dark. She said that she warned him that it was forbidden to go here. 10 years ago, the old man said that since the formation of their family, they had walked this path. They should not retreat now. Now it was their turn. The man happily said that he could not believe that such a thing existed in their days. Sububaki came out in front of them and said that they would start. Suddenly, Kikio appeared behind her and called her. The old man told her to go, but to remember that they did not have much time. Sububaki thanked him and turned around saying that she wanted to give her one thing. She tied her hair with a ribbon and hugged her. Kikio happily exclaimed, her sister is the best in the world. Sububaki said that even with her hair tied up, she's still cute. Kikio said that her sister is so clingy and she asked, but she should somehow express her feelings? She asked her for a hug, and Kikio listened to her. Sububaki calmly said, like this, if she is embarrassed to speak, words can be conveyed with hugs, and thanked her for worrying about her. Everything will be okay. She is strong and can handle this. She will definitely live to see her get married. At present, Kikio sadly said that her sister was like the sun, and people were drawn to her. And she grew up shy, but she always put on a brave face around her sister. But that day, the Uesugi family's monster suppression party never returned home. Without the clan's protection, this land is too dangerous for ordinary people, so the residents had to come down from the mountain and everyone was sad. But besides that, she felt the gaze on her, as if it would be better for her to die than her sister. Takeru wanted to say, but Kikio beat him to it. She knew that maybe it wasn't like that and they all had a reason to come down from the mountain, but she couldn't tell them not to go, because she had the power to protect everyone, and as the last member of the Uesugi clan, it was her duty to continue the family's work. But she doubted that she could do it. She always believed that she would become like her sister if she continued to try, so she began to act like her, and her ribbon gave her strength. Without it, she is completely lost and hates herself like this. Takeru said that he understands her, because he was like that himself. He was bullied and wanted to change his life. He dreamed of becoming someone else, just not continuing to live like this. She wondered, even with such force, how he was able to change. He said that he met people who recognized him. Kikio said that she understood. He met amazing people. After some time, they returned to the estate and Soma greeted him, asking, on his feet since this morning? He fixed the entrance to the dojo. The protagonist thanked him. He is doing well. He does not think that he should bother her like this anymore. Soma gritted his teeth with displeasure. She really got angry at first, but still, even though she hides it, she is quite a lonely person. So she needs a person, at least for sparring. He is going for a run. Is he with him? Takeru refused because of business and thought, this guy is something. He will try his best, and after some time he found himself near a river that was between the mountains. The protagonist sighed heavily and thought that finding the ribbon would not be so easy. He had no idea where to look. If his soul was pure, the ribbon would have come to him itself. He came to his senses and asked if there was some evil lurking in his soul. Kikio agreed and apologized. It just attacked her. Takeru smiled and said the main thing was that she was safe. She wondered, but how did he manage not to get a scratch? After all, she hit with all her strength. Takeru awkwardly asked, was there something else there? For example, another soul? Kikio said that it was simply impossible for two souls to be in one body. The protagonist asked in surprise, wasn't she possessed by spirits? She answered that she only borrowed their power, so it was not possession. If another soul appeared in the body with the soul, the protagonist thoughtfully asked, is the first one displaced? Where did Takeru's soul go then? Suddenly he found himself alone and noticed a fox nearby. He looked at it in surprise, which walked forward wagging its tail. Takeru thought, was she trying to call him? After a while, the fox led him to the ribbon and he happily exclaimed, it was a ribbon. He thanked it for finding the ribbon. The fox noted that he could repay the favor in kind. The protagonist understood and asked how he could help. After an awkward silence, the fox asked, wasn't he even surprised? She was a talking fox after all. Takeru said that this was not his first dialogue with animals, so what should he do? The fox asked, was there a girl with him? She wanted him to protect her. The protagonist asked, protect her? Even without him, she was pretty strong. He remembered Soma's words and said that he understood. The fox smiled and thanked him, and about the ribbon, it was just luck. She asked him to just take care of Kikio and not tell her about it. Takeru was near Kikio again and thought, Is this teleportation magic? She called out to him and asked what he was doing here. Was this her ribbon, and had he been looking for it all this time? The protagonist agreed, it was even intact. Kikio hugged him and thanked him. The protagonist smiled and was glad that it was found. Suddenly, Kikio pulled away from him and tied her hair and asked smugly, was he glad that he received a hug from her? Takeru said that he saw her naked, and she awkwardly asked, does he like to tease her? He noted that he was just rather boring. Meanwhile, near the tree of memory, Sububaki said, of course he was stupid, but Kikio would be fine with him. He couldn't understand how long she had been waiting for this day. She looked at the silhouette of the hunter in the tree and exclaimed, impossible. Kikio is not alone anymore. In life, it was her duty to protect her sister, but that was in the past. Now everything is in his hands, and let him just try to offend her, or she will get him out from under the ground. Kikio created the Ramanira and said that it would accompany him. The protagonist said goodbye to her and thanked her for everything. Soma asked if he was coming back already, and he was still waiting for them to start doing their summer homework. She apologized for not being able to help him, and he happily said that everything was fine, he would find another way and keep them informed. Kikio noted that even if an evil spirit had taken possession of him, it was only a matter of time. Sooner or later, his body would begin to reject the second soul, since it was impossible to suppress the soul of the body's owner for a long time. At least he would not need the services of an exorcist. He clenched his fist tightly and thanked her. After a while, Takeru was descending the mountain and thinking that according to Asugi, his soul had not returned yet, but was it hidden somewhere, or had it disappeared altogether? He had returned to the very beginning, and needed to think about what to do next. Anira made a sound when suddenly an earthquake started, and he grabbed it in his arms. Tentacles appeared from the mountain behind him, and he turned his head back. Soma called out to Kikio in surprise, and she thought that they still had some time. She ordered him to go down the mountain, and he asked if she was going to do it alone. When suddenly she hit him, and he fell unconscious. Kikio said that she appreciated it, but he would only get in her way, and it was the duty of the Uesugi clan. She called Anir, and putting Soma on it, said that she trusted him, even though he was impudent, but still he was like a brother to her. Anira made a sound excitedly, and Kikio happily said that everything was fine. She had been preparing for this for 10 years. The villagers called out to her, and she thanked them for everything. She would need a lot of mana now. Grandma said that their true form was Shikigami, so if they were even a little useful, that would be enough for them. Anira was carrying Soma, and he exclaimed that they needed to go back. They can't abandon Uesugi. It suddenly stopped, and Kikio thought, was it her sister who created this Shikigami? Sububaki agreed and said that it was Anira. She would protect her and asked her to get along with it. Kikio hid behind her in fear, and Sububaki asked what to do, when suddenly the creature understood everything and transformed into a plush toy like in her arms. She asked Kikio to look at how soft it was. Sububaki had been walking with Anira all their childhood and asked her to be together forever. Soma called out to it and said that they needed to go back since he was also a hunter and if they didn't help her. Anira jumped over the abyss and Takeru appeared in front of them. He asked in surprise, "Are the guys okay?" Anira was all cut up. It did what it could. He used the healing skill, and the wounds on the creature's body began to heal. The protagonist noted that he was not that good at healing magic. Compared to healers, he was quite slow. He asked him to be careful, and Soma looked at the destroyed soil of the earth in fear. Takeru called out to him and asked if he understood correctly that this was a repeat of that disaster. Soma exclaimed, he was right, and they needed to go back to help. Anira ran forward with Soma, and the protagonist thought in bewilderment, does it mean that Uesugi is fighting alone now? We need to help her. Suddenly, a fox appeared next to him and called out to him, noting that it looked like he needed advice. Meanwhile, Kikio went deeper into the cave and Sububaki said that she was waiting for her. They finally met. Her hair, it looks like she copied her image from back then. She still lacked confidence? Was she lonely? But that was in the past now. They would be together again, and today, they would reunite. Kikio grabbed the sword in displeasure and said, Onbei Shira Mandai Sawaka. She is the manifestation of a god, and her sword will destroy all demons. Her heart was like a flower that would protect people. There was a large magic seal underneath them, and Sububaki said with displeasure, so she rejected her. Then she would have to fix her face well? Kikio swung the blade and said that the disobedient god would be destroyed because she was the incarnation of Bissamon. For defaming her sister's honor, she would kill her. The fox ran after him with displeasure and asked if she wasn't supposed to be his guide. She ordered him to stop running ahead. There would be no point, and he probably didn't know where to go at all, right? Takeru said he thought it would be enough to just run to the source of mana. The fox exclaimed, that's why he's so boring. The protagonist wondered, so what is this fierce power at the source? It's too powerful a creature to be a simple monster. The fox answered, to be precise, it's not really a monster. His name is Naraku. He came here 1,000 years ago through the dragon's abode and is a demon. Does he know about them? Takeru answered, only the fact of existence. She noted that from generation to generation in the Uesugi family, knowledge of the demon that was summoned is passed down. To stay in this world, he requires a vessel, Yorisro. Naraku has the power to interfere with the psyche of any living being. He used this power to pretend to be a god who controls the weather and mountains. People feared him as a mountain god, but their family used the true divine power to seal him. However, for some reason, the seal was removed 10 years ago. It seems that the seal weakened over time and he lost his former power, so they were able to seal him again. Although it put the Uesugi family in a difficult situation, he was too strong. The protagonist asked, she is Tsubaki's older sister, right? She agreed. Her body was stolen by that demon, so she is only here as a spirit. But he immediately understood who she is? Takeru asked, it is because she does not have a shadow, but why a fox? Subaki asked, wouldn't he be scared if a stranger suddenly appeared in the mountains? And she is cute. Since the Uesugi family has godly power, her body is suitable as a vessel for a demon, and Kikio has the highest potential to become a vessel for the strongest god. Naraku will target Kikio in order to return to this world as a god again, that being saw her memories. Takeru noted, even if the demon's vessel is destroyed, it will not affect him because the soul is in another place. Subaki asked, is there a way to deal with him? If the attack was with divine power, the soul would also be damaged, but even with all their power, they could only immobilize and seal it. Meanwhile, near the memory tree, Kikio and Tsubaki's blades touched, and Subaki called out to her, exclaiming that if she only defended herself, she would die. Kikio thought that her body was occupied by a fake soul, but the techniques she used were real. It had completely taken over Tsubaki's mind and body. Subaki used the secret technique of Seiryu and summoned a large dragon, which attacked Kikio. But Kikio dodged and crossed blades with her again. She said that seeing them sisters clashing swords brought back memories of the past. She hated training, so she cried and ran away all the time. Did she still carry that toy sheep with her? Was she still afraid to go outside without it? Kikio angrily gritted her teeth and slashed at it with her blade. Subaki laughed as she suddenly grabbed the blades and ordered her to stop pretending to be her older sister. Kikio used divine power release and raised her sword up and slashed at her. Blood sprayed everywhere and Subaki looked at her in confusion. She called out to her with tears in her eyes and said that she didn't want to die. She didn't want to feel pain anymore and asked her to help her. Kikio looked at her with fear and didn't dare to kill her. Subaki smiled and said as expected, they are two soft people. She suddenly grabbed Kikio with magic and black tentacles wrapped around her body. She said that he had become quite skilled in using Tsubaki's memories. She was a good vessel and asked her not to worry. He would put her to good use. Figures appeared behind her and she ordered her to look. The whole family was gathered, so she could not worry and fall asleep. When suddenly the magic dissipated and Takeru grabbed the wounded Kikio in his arms. Subaki asked, and who is he? Kikio muttered, she did not do well. The protagonist ordered her to be quiet since she was losing a lot of blood. Subaki called out to him and ordered him to stop ignoring her. After all the troubles he went through to get here, she got close to his face and said madly, is he Kikio's boyfriend or does he want to be friends? Suddenly, Takeru punched her in the face and she flew away. He continued using magic to heal her and said that with his casting speed, he won't be able to heal her in time. Fox came running and said she finally caught up with him. Takeru said that the bleeding won't stop, but she asked him not to worry and leave it to her. Fox took her ribbon back and climbed on top of Kikio and lay down. Suddenly, the ribbon turned into a flower. The protagonist was surprised and Fox said, this ribbon was a gift from her to Kikio. She will use it as a medium to transfer the little life she has left. Takeru said if she does that, then she will die. She asked if he remembered his promise. The protagonist agreed. He thought that he would help her socialize and he would try. Meanwhile, Subaki was sitting near the broken wall and the protagonist took out his sword and thought, he is not very good at fighting when it comes to protecting others, so if she crosses that line, he will kill her. Subaki said that he was saying interesting things and used black magic, attacking the protagonist. He reflected her attack and the fox said that it was really powerful. Besides, this guy has amazing recovery power. If it weren't for him, she wouldn't have been able to save her. She called out to Kikio and would say it now. She wasn't such a bright person from the beginning. She had moments of doubt in which she didn't see her. Their parents died of illness and she became the head of the family. She had to live up to everyone's expectations and she pushed her worries aside, trying to be as bright as possible. That's why she envied her, because she could openly show her emotions to everyone. It was a bit annoying at times, but every time she called her, it calmed her down and made her know that she was not alone. Thanks to her, she was able to hold back, and she's the most important person to her. Her dear beloved sister. She saves her no matter what. Meanwhile, Soma was walking behind the Anira in frustration. He stopped and it pounced on him. He said that she was going to crush him now. Soma looked at the mountain and asked, because the seal was released, more monsters came out? He said that he was leaving Kikio with the Anira, and it rushed up the mountain. He said that an A-rank hunter was requesting emergency help. He was in Niigata, Yomatsudake district. Soma thought that being a burden was very annoying, and in any case, he should not be offended. He did not become a hunter for the approval of others. This is his path, and he will protect everyone beautifully, and ordered the monster to attack him. Meanwhile, Kikio was lying unconscious, and the fox thought that her sister was incredible since childhood. Little Kikio watched the crowd of people, in which Subaki was. Suddenly, they noticed her, and she quickly ran away. The man said that only Kikio was left. It was a pity if only Subaki survived. She burst into tears and said that she was weak in every sense. Although she understood that she was winding herself up, she saw the bad in everything. She hated herself with all her heart because of this. And she wondered what she was capable of at all if she became like her sister and if she had her strength. She wanted to become stronger, or rather, she had to be strong, and if she could not, then what could make her strong at all? Subaki called out to Kikio and asked, she was tired, right? But it's okay, she doesn't have to worry about others anymore. She's here. They'll be together forever, right? When suddenly Subaki started to disappear and asked in displeasure, what's going on? Kikio turned around and saw her smiling. She said she'd grown so much, but she was still the same crybaby. Kikio called out to her and hugged her and said she had no one left and she didn't even know how she could become stronger. She was so worried, she was so lonely, and she wanted to become one, but she was too weak. Subaki asked to listen to her and said she thought she tried hard enough and important feelings should be expressed directly and she'd show her how to do it. Naraku asked in displeasure, was he seriously trying to save her? How dare they? The man asked, was he a complete idiot? They'd all been waiting for this. Naraku said that according to this body's memories, there was only one person left who possessed godly power. And even after all their efforts, they could only immobilize him here. As soon as he gets out, suddenly Tsubaki's voice said that he wouldn't be able to do it. He asked in confusion what her soul was still doing in this body. She ordered him not to think that he could get away with it, and to try with her until the seal was restored again. Since they were both sealed here and she couldn't leave this place far, she would spend all this time praising her little sister. The girl smiled and asked if she wasn't kind. Seeing a dying flower, Kikio wouldn't throw it away, but would take care of it until the end. The man noted that she ate much more than him. She would definitely grow up to be a big shot. Even though she hated studying and constantly ran away from classes, Kikio still came back and apologized. She was sincere and had great potential. Naraku asked with displeasure, what did they want from him? Subaki ordered him not to underestimate her, and she wouldn't lose to him. Kikio and her were alone. Subaki said that she knew that it was hard for her, and she was sorry that she had to take this time on herself. But she didn't have to become her, right? She had plenty of her own strengths. Kikio asked, strong? She said that her presence here was direct proof, and asked her not to forget that they loved her for who she was. That was all she needed to know. Kikio looked at her with tears in her eyes in surprise and thanked her. It made her feel better. She loved them all very much too. Subaki smiled happily and said that she didn't have to hug her anymore to show her feelings. She hugged her and Subaki said goodbye to her. She would always look after her. Takeru repelled all the enemy's attacks and magic flared up around his body. Naraku asked, won't he die before he crosses this line? The protagonist asked that he was going to die anyway. So how about giving up? He thought that these warriors were the strongest among humans, but he was fending off their attacks so easily. Who the hell was he? The protagonist thought that he looked like a human, but he was full of slime inside and couldn't use skills that required divine power. Since he was powerless, that meant he had to. Suddenly, Kikio came up behind him and he greeted her. She asked if he had been protecting her all this time. She thanked him and said that she had changed. Maybe he was right. I wonder if it was because she had found people close to her? Takeru noticed that one of them had said that the cutest and most beautiful girl could handle all of this. Kikio mentally thanked him, Soma, and her sister, and said that she felt that she could handle anything now. This power was so great that it was not easy to control and that it would require the appropriate determination to wield such power. Kikio asked, this is not Bisumon's power. What kind of power is this? She cast a spell and a magical power appeared around her. Naraku got angry and released magical energy at them. Takeru noticed. He said he wouldn't let him go. A lot of magical power burst out of his blade, when suddenly he was next to him, but he was trying to attack Kikio. Naraku thought that he had a bad feeling, and if he didn't stop this bastard now, he had to kill her right now. Kikio used the Anir as a shield, and it attacked it. He exclaimed angrily, a guardian spirit as he sees it. He stuck his sword into it, and the protagonist hurried to heal the Anir. Naraku said displeasedly, having gone so far, he won't be able to protect her. Kikio continued casting a spell and accumulating power. Energy enveloped her body, and she asked the majestic patron who possessed the power of rage and tyranny to grant her the power to destroy her enemies. She used the divine power release skill, and a magic sword appeared in her hand. Naraku thought with displeasure, what a powerful divine energy. He was being expelled from Subaki's body. He left her body, and the protagonist asked, "Is this what he really looks like?" He rushed to attack, and Naraku exclaimed, "This is pointless. He is in a state of mind now, and a normal attack will not work." Takeru knocked him back and asked how he hit him. Is he using divine flames? The protagonist apologized and said that he specializes in fire magic. Naraku asked, does he really want to kill both of them? Doesn't he care what happens to his soul? Takeru ordered him to shut up, and he began to beg to let him go. Kikio started walking towards them and thinking, terrifying power. Her whole body is falling apart from it, and if she relaxes, the power will just flow out of her. She has to concentrate and imagine how the flames are weaving around the sword. At this point, she can only make one hit, and the protagonist seems to understand this and buys time for her. She simply cannot miss. The old her could not even control this power. But now she has changed and will no longer hesitate, so she will destroy all the evil spirits in front of her. Kikio used the fire dragon sword and attacked Naraku. The protagonist managed to dodge, and a huge vortex of powerful energy appeared over the city. Soma looked at this, while Kikio fell exhausted into Takeru's arms. Anira clung to her, and the protagonist thanked her for her work. After a while, Kikio was sitting near Tsubaki's grave, and Soma said that now the Hunters Association is discussing the issues of further management of this land. They also asked her to come to the main office of the association. Kikio noted that she realized that they did not have much work left, and she still needed to find a new home. Takeru was surprised. Is she really going to leave this place? She agreed. After all, she originally stayed to destroy Naraku, but she had fulfilled her duty. Maybe she should ask someone from outside to manage the dragon's abode? After all, it was impossible to continue guarding it alone. Soma said that it was time for them to pack their things then, and called the protagonist along. Takeru looked at her and thought, at that moment, he was sure that her attack would not affect him. So when the divine energy tore Naraku away from Lady Tsubaki, he remained unharmed. Kikio said that she was not an evil spirit, but that was simply because he was not an enemy in her eyes. After all, good and evil are too subjective. Kikio thought about what the protagonist thought of her. She took a ribbon in her hand and asked if she would not be able to find peace if she imitated her sister all the time. Kikio tied it around a stone and began to walk away from there. Ryer said discontentedly that he only asked him to meet Naraku. How come he was killed? Adams asked if he was hungry. He had absorbed all his mana. Ryer exclaimed discontentedly that it was not funny. They needed to gather strength for the right moment, and next time, let him be kind enough to carry out the order properly. Ryer thought, however, the fact that Naraku was defeated, does that mean that they were noticed? Therefore, they need to be extremely careful. Meanwhile, Mayoi moved a pawn on the chessboard. Takeru suddenly opened his eyes, and Karen was lying next to him. She woke up and happily led him by the hand somewhere. When suddenly the main character and she were grabbed by a man happily playing with them. The guy went out into the street half asleep, and he abruptly threw him to the ground. They sat in a circle and had fun. Takeru woke up and asked what was that. After a while, he headed to school, and on the way, he thought that some unusually real dream, and more like Takeru's memories than a dream. In the dream, he was about 5 to 6 years old, and when he tried to find out more about him by looking at the photo album, he could not find a single photo before 6 years old. Takeru's mother was unhappy about the fact that his dad accidentally deleted all the data when they moved, and he was so cute then. Uesugi said that souls separated from the body often wander in places somehow connected with them, and in order to find Takeru's soul, it might be worth learning about his past. He'll have to ask when he gets back. Suddenly, he received a message from Sakura on his phone, and she asked if they could meet after the ceremony. There was a small problem, and she wanted to talk in person. The protagonist was surprised and thought that he would write that he didn't mind. I wonder what the problem was. It's harder to talk politely than it seems, and he needs to get used to it. Meanwhile, Kikio happily introduced herself and said that she was an S-rank hunter who had come to them as a temporary teacher. Sawamura was surprised, and Takeru said that he seemed happy. He looked at her and thought, but it seemed like she was really nervous. Soma shook his head, and the principal thanked her, saying that an exchange student from Hoshimiya Academy in the Kansai region had come to them. Sawamura was even more surprised and asked, Hoshimiya Academy? The principal asked for an introduction, and Karen said that she was an S-rank hunter. The students were surprised, and she said that it was only until spring of next year, so even if it was for a short time, it was nice to meet everyone. Sawamura exclaimed, it was incredible that Karen had come to them. She was only a year older than them, and in Kansai, she was considered the greatest hunter in the history of Hoshimiya Academy. The students and graduates of Hoshimiya Academy form one of the largest and strongest witch guilds in the Kansai region. Thanks to her talent and authority, she became a master in her first year. Takeru thought that Sawamuro seemed very happy. Sawamuro said that she's also popular as an idol and everything she uses, cosmetics or bags, becomes fashionable. Takeru said that although she is from Kansai, she does not use their dialect. Maybe she communicates with people from the Kanto region for work? Sawamuro asked if she is not from Kansai at all. Before losing his memory, he was a fan of hers. The protagonist asked in surprise, "Is this real?" He answered that he is not really a fan, more like a stalker. The protagonist awkwardly said that he forgot because he had something to do. Sawamuro said goodbye and Takeru went in the other direction, noticing Kikio and Sakura together. He greeted her and Kikio called out to him and said that she feels calmer next to a familiar person. He asked, "Why is she so nervous?" They agreed to be themselves even in Hidoin. Kikio awkwardly replied that she simply did not want to disgrace the Uesugi name. Sakura asked, "Do they know each other?" Kikio hesitantly agreed. They were so close that they had already shown each other their naked bodies. They were surprised and Sakura asked in bewilderment, "Naked body?" Takeru exclaimed in fear, "He will explain everything. He heard about this incident on Yomigake." Kikio excitedly asked, "Does she believe them?" She answered that they had a hard time too. The protagonist asked, "So what did she want to talk about?" Sakura said that it turned out that Takeru was the one who destroyed the guild, and this became known to the top management of the hunting association. But for some reason, the head of the association decided to settle this matter himself, and it seems that he is watching him. Does he personally know the head of the associations? Takeru said, probably to the point of losing his memory, but he does not know. The head of the hunting association knows him? Sakura said, to be honest, the association's purpose is unclear, and there are too many rumors. Especially that there are two S-class hunters there to spy on him. Kikio exclaimed excitedly, "That's not true, and she doesn't know anything about it." In fact, her sister also thought the association was suspicious and refused the invitation at the time. She agreed because they needed help, and maybe they should be more careful. Sakura said, when they were at the meeting because of the Ouroboros case, Karen was also present. Suddenly, she appeared behind her and asked, "But isn't she spying on him too?" She happily waved her hand and apologized, couldn't wait for the conversation to end. She hasn't seen Sakura for a long time, and she is also happy to see Kikio. Sakura asked, "Isn't she spying on Takeru too? Then what is the purpose of her being here?" Karen said his name embarrassedly and threw herself into his arms. She said that she wanted to see him so much. Everyone was surprised and the protagonist asked, "Does she know him?" Karen said she knows that he lost his memory and even about his past. He abruptly turned her to face him and asked her to tell him about this past, since it is very important to him. Karen asked, "Does he want to know so much?" Takeru agreed and she said that then she will tell if he goes on a date with her. The protagonist looked at the phone screen in bewilderment. Sawatura asked him in correspondence, "Is it true that yesterday because of Takeru, 3 S-class hunters had a big fight?" He does not quite understand, but he must remember, he is always on his side. Will he tell what happened? Meanwhile, Takeru stood in the middle of the street and thought, what do they usually do on dates? He never went for a walk alone with a girl. He went shopping with Sakura in the city, but he cannot say that it was a date. Karen called out to him and asked how long he waited for her. How does he like her image today? The protagonist said that it suited her very well and she happily asked, "Is it true?" She was so happy. "So, are they going?" Karen pressed her chest against him and he sheepishly tried to call out to her. Chika asked in surprise, "Wasn't this guy recently on a date with Hunter Sakura?" One of them asked in bewilderment, "Did Karen come to Tokyo? She managed to charm 2 S-class in such a short time? Should they go after them? It's impossible." And later, Moriga isn't here yet because he's late. The girl asked not to interfere in other people's relationships, but she was so interested. Meanwhile, they walked along a crowded street, after which Karen looked at toys and took pictures with him. She said in bewilderment, a new frappuccino appeared on the menu, and she only decided to act like an adult today. Takeru asked, then he will also abstain. Can she suggest something not sweet? The protagonist noted that he tried it for the first time. But it is delicious. Karen asked, hers is also very delicious. Does he want to try it? She handed him a glass of drink and he looked at her in confusion. Karen awkwardly exclaimed, this is not what he thought, and apologized. She's probably in too much of a hurry, right? Takeru looked at her displeasedly and thought, is this what embarrassed her? She asked where he wants to go next. He asked, maybe to a weapons store or something. Karen asked, does he like this kind of thing? Of course they will go. The protagonist looked at the happy Karen. After a while, they were sitting at the table and she tried to get the words out of him that she wants to hear. Takeru awkwardly said something she did not want, and Karen exclaimed, his face? She asked to give her a little break and if he could not be so polite to her. The protagonist asked, so where did they first meet? Karen said that there was a time when they gathered children with high magical aptitude and they met there, starting to communicate well. He was surprised and asked, so he really has a lot of mana? She agreed, much more than hers. Takeru thought, if S-Class says this, then why did he let Orochi bully him? He could have fought back. The waiter brought the order, and Karen happily asked, he ordered Neapolitan. Does that mean he eats tomatoes now? The protagonist said, as long as they are processed and not raw. Karen noted that she would start eating too, and now she ruined everything. The protagonist used magic, and there were no stains on her clothes. She thanked him in surprise, and Takeru thought, after all, she dressed up for him. She shyly called out to him and happily said, he is so kind and cool. Takeru was surprised, and she thought, who is he really? Meanwhile, they were lying on the grass under a tree, and the protagonist thought, what kind of situation is this? Karen chuckled and said, it was like they had returned to the past. Takeru apologized in his mind. If he was the real protagonist, this would be a valuable memory, but where is Takeru now? Suddenly, hunters appeared behind them, and the protagonist used magic, pushed the girl who used the fireball skill away from him and threw her aside. He called out to Karen and asked, did she deliberately bring him here, where there is no one? What is the meaning of all this? She pointed at him and asked displeasedly, who else is this? Why can he use magic? Takeru said that since his amnesia, for some reason he can use it. Karen told him not to lie to her. Even if he has high magic compatibility, his body is not suitable for magic, so he cannot use magic. Memory loss doesn't explain anything. It's only possible if he became a different person with a magical essence that matches his body. What's wrong with him? She ordered him to give Takeru back to her, and she won't forgive him, because he stole him, the one she loved. All the bastards who dared to use his body, she will never forgive any of them. A powerful energy formed around her body, which summoned the Ifrit. Takeru looked at her in fear and tried to call out to her, but she ordered him to shut up and not to say her name in his voice, and then she ordered the Ifrit to burn this imposter to the ground. The monster rushed at him, and he tried to parry the blow, but his strength was not enough, and he was thrown back. Edelweiss ran up to him and called out to him worriedly, but he said that he was fine. She said that he was not able to control magic at all. The task was to destroy a small stone on top of a large boulder. Takeru said sadly that he won't be able to use magic in populated areas. Edelweiss thinks that because of the large amount of mana, it is difficult for him to control it. He asked, does she have any advice? She said thoughtfully, instead of trying to hit the target right away, he should try to analyze the surroundings and not hit it. Will he be able to focus on this? The protagonist exclaimed. He will try, and thanked her. Edelweiss thought, this is why there is an opinion that those talented in magic are kind at heart. If it is Takeru, who always tries to save complete strangers, he will definitely cope. Takeru used a fire blast and reflected the attack of the Ifrit, asking Karen to listen to him. She said angrily, because she told him to shut up. The protagonist dodged the monster's attacks again, and they used magic at the same time. A large magic ball with a glow appeared above them, and Takeru thought that her attacks were too fast. She lived up to her rank. She uses high-level magic, and there is no damage on the grass around her. Only the intended target takes damage. Although fire magic is hard to control, she was able to completely master fire. That's why it's called rage. If just defeating her was enough, he would have finished it quickly. Karen is worried about Takeru and is angry. It's his fault, and he can't bring himself to attack her. In any case, he needs to do something. Maybe convince her? Karen watched his movements and thought about how he could never move like that. He was physically incapable of it. He also couldn't use magic normally and looks like Takeru, but he is a completely different person. She will go crazy so soon. She was overcome by memories of when little Takeru asked her not to worry. Her flames are as warm and beautiful as she is. Even if she hates her magic, he really likes it. She really tried. She did everything she could so that the flames that once burned him would never harm him again. If this is really Takeru's body, then she asks to be forgiven. But she will never forgive the imposters who try to pretend to be him. She uses her flames to drive the imposter out of his body. Karen got angry and ordered him to get out of Takeru right now. She attacked him again with a powerful force, but he managed to dodge the blow and fell right on top of her. He exclaimed, she is losing control of her magic, and if she continues to increase the power of her spells, she will burn herself. She tried to crawl out from under him and ordered him to let go. The protagonist thought about slowly transferring some of his mana to her and taking control of her magic. The output is still increasing and will only get worse if she continues. Takeru will be sad if she hurts herself. It is true that he is not the protagonist, but this is his body and he will bring Takeru back. Karen asked with displeasure, does he think she will believe this nonsense? The protagonist smiled and said, everything is fine. He also wants him to come back. Suddenly, the Frit disappeared, and Takeru thought, the raging magic disappeared? So she was able to take control of everything before him? Karen pushed him away from her and cried. Takeru, confused, apologized to her, and the two subordinates watched them with displeasure. Karen ordered him to be quiet and said that she thought that everything was under control, but she failed. This helped her realize that it was too early for them to see him and she had not reached the level she wanted. Takeru smiled and she asked him to explain the situation. "And who is he?" After a while, she thoughtfully asked. "That is, he was summoned to another world. He saved it and then died and woke up in Takeru's body?" He agreed and Karen excitedly said that she knew a good hospital and could advise him. Takeru, frightened, said that everything was fine. Karen asked, "Let's say she accepts his story for now, but how will he prove that this body really belongs to Takeru?" The protagonist said, "Indeed, he doesn't have his memories either." One friend, Sawamuro, said that he always supported her. Karen was surprised and he continued, even when he was far away, he was happy about her successes and watched over her. He was going to talk to him soon at Oran Academy, so he could check with him. Karen was happy and resolutely said that she understood everything. He wants to return to Takeru's body, right? Then she will help him. He was surprised and asked if she believed him. She said that she can't accept everything right away, so she will check everything properly. And what is his name? Takeru was confused and she asked him to say his real name. He said that his name is also, and Karen asked, "Is he also Takeru?" The protagonist said that he himself was shocked. He thought about the fact that he hadn't introduced himself by this name for a long time, a strange feeling. Karen said that she would call him Takeru then, since calling him by his last name is too awkward to explain to others. "And are there any clues on how to get him back?" The protagonist said that Uesugi said that he was wandering around places connected to the past, so he decided to find out more about Takeru's past. He asked his parents, but nothing concrete was found yet, so he wants her to tell him everything she knows. Karen agreed and asked him to get his phone. Takeru looked at the geolocation, and she told him to come here tomorrow at 10 a.m., and tomorrow she will explain everything, but he should not tell anyone that he will go there. She remained silent and then apologized for attacking him then. Takeru noted that he was not offended. He thought that after all, she really is not an evil person. Karen left and Midori appeared behind her. She said that she would leave her command and asked her to check everything about Takeru and Yamato's identity again. He should have disappeared 40 years ago. Midori bowed and noted that she would finish in 3 days. After some time, they came to an abandoned building and Karen exclaimed, "Finally came." Takeru apologized for making them wait and she asked him to come quickly. She said that she had not been here for a long time, and entering inside, the main character asked where they were. She replied that this was a research center. She and Takeru grew up here. She was very young, so she doesn't know what exactly they were researching here. But she remembers that when she was 7, an inspection from the Hunters Guild came here and the center was closed, and that people with high magical potential were gathered here. She thinks that this is where they will find the key to what happened to Takeru. She heard that he died when he was 6, so when she saw him on the association's recording, she was shocked. Although, to be honest, she already felt that it was him back then in the park when she hugged him. People remember a lot with their bodies, at the level of relationships, and this should not be underestimated. Takeru said that she was right. Karen noted that after the institution was closed, the association gave orphans like them to adoptive parents. She thinks that Takeru was one of them too. Didn't his parents tell him anything? He said that he was hearing about it for the first time, and she answered that maybe it was better not to trust them. They clearly wouldn't assign people like that, just like that. He looks so suspicious. Maybe he's just too kind? Takeru said that he probably relaxed a little, but he thought that her love for him was not false. Karen adjusted her hat and said that she wouldn't deny it. She looked at every corner and added that it seemed like there were no records left. Takeru thought that if he started to doubt, he wouldn't be able to stop. Yamato had a bad relationship with his parents, but he feels that Takeru is the opposite. If he had lived more devotedly in his time, maybe he would be able to understand people's feelings better now. Takeru thought that there was no point in thinking about it. Now he just needed to move forward. They walked down the hallway, and she said that the courtyard was ahead, and that was the place where they often played. How many memories? Suddenly, a flock of monsters met them in the backyard, and Karen awkwardly exclaimed, "How many are there?" She took her magic stick in her hand and said, "The monsters have really invaded her dear place of memories and ordered them not to dare to break in here without permission." Takeru used magic and thought that the building had become fragile, and we must try not to destroy it. He attacked the monsters together with Karen, and thought that she was adjusting to his actions on the front line, covering, distracting. Very well coordinated. She has a lot of experience in team fights. He himself does not like when he is overly covered, but it is convenient to fight with her. Karen exclaimed for him to defeat this. The protagonist attacked the monster, and Karen thoughtfully said that the number of monsters is abnormally large. It seems that a large gate breakthrough occurred somewhere. Takeru noted that they cannot allow them to destroy the research center even more. She asked him to quickly deal with this and close the gate. The protagonist rushed to attack and thought that he finally almost got to the solution and wanted to know more about Takeru. He ordered the monsters to get out of the way. After a while, they dealt with all the monsters and Takeru said that that was all. Karen said that the monsters were from there and asked him to quickly go close the gate. Honestly, it's good that she at least put on her uniform. The protagonist looked at the tree and saw him and Karen there. She asked, "Why is he standing there? She will leave him here." He looked back again and suddenly there was no one there. Thought, what just happened? Meanwhile, Karen dealt with the monsters and the protagonist watched her impressively. She thought that even she, an S-class, had a hard time doing this. Hunters registered in the association have the right to carry weapons, explore the gate, and participate in large-scale battles in the city. Although ordinary people are allowed to use magic, the fact that someone stronger than S-class is walking around without any restrictions is dangerous, and he is not even a member of the guild. Of course, she felt sorry for Takeru, who was executed in another world, but she couldn't help but think that it was supposed to be like that. In all fairness, she should have reported it to the association, but she was the one who started the fight yesterday and maybe he wasn't evil at all. And even then, she was too emotional, although it still couldn't be ruled out that he was an enemy. They were cooperating now, but if suddenly, then Takeru stared ahead and noticed two men fighting each other. He wondered why he was seeing such images. Were these memories or did someone want to pass something on to him? Karen looked around and said that there were no documents left here either, and it looked like the association had taken everything when they closed this place. It felt like even her memories had been stolen. The protagonist asked, "What kind of room was this?" She replied that magic levels were tested here during combat training, but kids like them didn't participate. Takeru asked, "Were they burying a time capsule in the courtyard?" Karen grabbed him by the shoulders in surprise and asked how he knew that. He didn't have Takeru's memories, did he? The protagonist replied that he had actually been seeing scenes that resembled memories recently. Karen exclaimed, "He should have said so right away." He asked, "Is it something important?" She answered that it was too. But when they were looking for a place to bury it, they found a door leading underground. The scientists said that it was a warehouse of dangerous magical materials and entry was prohibited. As a result, they buried the capsule in the yard. Takeru suggested going there and after a while they found a locked door. He asked what they were going to do with the capsule. Karen said that later, first they needed to explore this place. She opened the door and noted that it was too suspicious a place for a warehouse. They went down and walked forward along the corridor. Takeru noted, "This is the corridor they laid out." What were they exploring here anyway? And the association didn't find this place. He hoped they'd find some kind of clue about Takeru. Karen thought she felt like they were poking around in places they shouldn't. She wondered if her magic would be useful,